Hello.
p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2023, and welcome to the 22nd episode of Effluvium. For this episode, our special guest panelist is James Elliott, and he is of Filigree Shadow. That is his perfume brand. He's an independent perfumer, and he is a guest as part of our independent perfumer series that we've been having. We will be joined by Ryan, who will be coming in shortly after I do my impressions, and we'll have two other regular panelists. We'll be having Rachel, who will be coming in for about an hour, and then following that, she will be replaced as she has other things to attend to. Dave, Callie's groom room, will be jumping on for the remainder of the stream. So tonight, we're going to get things started with 3 first impressions, as usual. The ones that I'm going to do tonight are another from Anatole Le Breton, L'eau Guillerette, Eau de Parfum, a vintage, or sort of vintage, from our good friend Anuj, Oscar for Men, and in parentheses it's yellow, but the juice itself isn't yellow, but I think it has more to do with the box this version had come in. And then the third one for our first impressions is Aromas de Salazar, A Summer Breeze. That'll be our third one. And plus, I do have some of the creations from James that I will be trying out as well during the stream. Not too many. I won't overindulge, as I am wont to do. So let's get this started. I am going to begin the first impressions, the 3 first impressions, with, as I see some comments coming through, with the Anatole Le Breton. And good evening, Micah. See you, Shoemaker. Great to see you. Philippe, before the stream was recording, I can of course share the comment, right? Did I forget about that? Before the stream was reading, Bellini was Maupassant with Bellini sprayed in the book. It was courtesy of Basic Morlaco, which I hope to see this evening. Very nice. Eau de Soleil from Naomi Goodsar. My personal favorite is Nuit de Bacali. And hello, Junkie Scent, Michi. Foreigners Double Vision. Folks were talking earlier about 80s songs, 80s, whether they're 80s love songs or dance songs. That one's late 70s, but I think that does sort of count. Late 70s. Who's counting? Not me. I wasn't born in the late 80s, was I? I was born in the late 80s. No, late 70s. All right, Anita Baker. Oh, yes. Anita Baker is the Mitsuko of Quiet Storm Singers. I love Anita. Caught up in the rapture of love. Wonderful. Okay, let's get the 3 first impressions started. All right, so this is Philippe. I may need your assistance. L'eau Guillerette. It's very tough with those double L's in French. Like Guillaume, Guillerette. L'eau Guillerette. All right. Well, this needs a little priming, huh? You gotta love a good fresh diaper jasmine. Orange blossom and jasmine. Very baby powder, but indolic too. So Philippe has told me that you pronounce the T at the end. Guillerette. L'eau Guillerette. Is that how it is? Please let me know. Yeah, this is a white floral blooming on my hand. Rather heady and Very, very white floral in a way that I can appreciate. But having no notes here, no notes breakdown to be biased and power of suggestion and all that jazz. I'm intrigued by it. It's very indolic, though. Very indolic. Like it. I like it. All right, next is the Oscar for Men. I believe this was released in 1999, from what I recall. There are some comparisons between this and Cacharel pour Homme or Dunhill edition. Give it a little spray. This has something in it that is very 90s. Dihydromercenol. I can see the comparisons, or smell the comparisons rather, with Cacharel, Dunhill edition, with the nutmeg. But this is dihydromercenol. This is that 90s spice blend. It's giving me a little bit of that. I'm trying to think of the spicy fragrance from the 90s. It almost kind of reminds me of a little bit of Hermes Roquebar too, oddly enough. And some aspects of, not that there's any fig in this, but it's just giving me that same vibe as Dior Dune pour Homme. It's pleasant. It's pleasant. It's not exciting me. It isn't titillating, but it's good. It's good. It's not something where I'm just, my mind is so blown that I got to get myself a bottle of this and add it to my already overflowing and overwhelming collection. I'm becoming far more picky these days, for good reason. And lastly, we're returning to Aromas de Salazar. Last week I did Fougère Fatale, I believe it was called, on the bottle over here, or Fatal Fougère. Had a rather questionable name, and it smelled a lot more like freshly mowed grass and lawnmower exhaust than a fougere to me, and it was a little confusing in the dry down. Hey, those thematic scents. I mean, Demeter has a fresh mown grass fragrance, but that doesn't really speak the fougere language to me. So that one was a bit confusing. But maybe Summer Breeze is more delightful. Summer Breeze makes me feel fine. See, the Anatole Liberton is the jasmine blowing in my mind. So that has that covered. Let's see what the Summer Breeze is all about, though. Oh, hell no. Oh no. No. Now somebody got a little too trigger happy with the woody ambers. This is not a Summer Breeze. This is more like, oh, goodness gracious. Good golly, Miss Molly. Oh, it's green. It has a nice green color. Look at that. I'm actually more excited to talk about the varying opacities of James' creations, which I find fascinating, and I'd love to ask him questions about that, because I love that. I love the fact that not all of them are transparent or even translucent. But this delightful green color is not enough. Color is not enough in fragrance. Oh God. Ooh. Something smells like Something smells like one of those like oh god. I remember my grandmother used to give them to me. Social tea crackers, Nabisco. Yeah, like processed biscuit cookies. Like, I don't know. This is a I don't know who has summers like this or breezes like this. Oh god. But I can't stop smelling it because I'm trying to figure out what's going on. What's going on? What's going on? Oh, it's a little limey too. But lime doesn't go well with biscuit. Oh, and there's like, okay. All right. So, I'm trying to be a nice guy. I see where this guy is trying to go, there are things like, maybe not to get too technical and lose the audience here, but certain aquatic aroma chems to suggest a summer breeze on the beach, things with suggestive names like ozonil and azaril and adoxal and all these things that are very potent if you're not handling, as a perfumer, if you're not handling them with care. Oh, I wasn't handling them with care here. No. All right, enough. I will not tear that apart any longer. But God, oh no. I'll read. I'll read. I'll smell this instead. Yeah, the Anatole Libertin is so far my favorite, even though I'm not really entirely sure what the premise is. What I pick up is indolic florals, really without anything else pulling them in any other direction, which I find kind of fascinating to just more focus on just that is kind of a risky move, but I'm kind of into it. All right, let's get back to the comments here. All right. Just got to scroll back just a little bit and get myself caught up. We have 34 people on. Just a reminder, to help support content like this, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee. You can buy one for $5 or $5 each. Buy as many as you like, or just one if that's all you can afford. Anything helps. I'm not a beggar. I swear I'm not. I am just looking to upgrade my live stream, my StreamYard, because it will give me the ability to add other things to this content. There are a lot of things that come with a paid subscription, so we'll just leave it there. Love the karaoke. Thank you very much. Good to see you. I don't think I've seen you here before, but Perfumery Hilaire, it's wonderful to see you. Yeah. Oh, and there's also like geosmin, which messing around with geosmin is already a gamble, but messing around with geosmin and all those aquatics, yeah. A year ago, oh, hi James Crowder. A year ago or so, I bought a 100 milliliter tester of plastic ivory click cap Jubilation 25. The seller had two, and I really regret not buying both. It's a really special perfume, kind of out of context, but I thought I'd share that nonetheless. Okay. I have to go back a little bit. All right. See all this wonderful stuff that I miss. Okay, I'm a little caught up here. Will, wonderful choice. Rev Dossien from Mauritzia Legrand. And howdy, Duncan. Good to see you. And finally, I get the affirmation from Philippe that my pronunciation was better. Okay, Nuge, wonderful to see you. I just a little while ago was sampling Oscar for Men. Thank you so much for that sample, among the many that you've been so generous to provide to me to do assessments. Scent of the day from Margie, zoologist Nightingale. And James Crowder says, hey, JJ, a while back you made a video about Gothic perfume. You seem to be a fan of Gothic music, and I was wondering what perfume you might associate with Bauhaus's Bela Lugosi's Dead. I love that song. I would probably choose, out of the ones that I had shared in that video, I go back to Beaufort London Fathom V, because that's the most goth out of all of them. All right, we're almost caught up here in the chat. YouTube chat is struggling tonight. Well, I think it's doing fine. Looks like people are having a good time here. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. There haven't really been too many opportunities to wear sweaters here in the Northeast because we've had very mild to warm weather for winter. But yeah, tonight I could get away with wearing a nice cozy sweater. I'm not sure what this means. I would love to support you, but I disagree with woke against free speech PayPal politics. You are welcome to elaborate on that. I don't know what you're referring to. I apologize if this is not content that you want to support, but nobody's holding a gun to your head. That's right. And thank you very much, supply and demand. That sweater is nice. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. And we will just do that. Just doing a little bit of housekeeping. And I think that now it's a good time to bring in Ryan to join me and get things started for this evening. I see him waiting patiently. And then soon we're going to bring in James. Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
Another Tuesday, another live stream. How you doing?
Yeah, and a first, wokeism. This is now, I guess, a place for wokeism.
Sure, I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, I drink a lot of coffee to keep myself awake. Drank some coffee this afternoon to keep myself chipper and alert.
I just had a decaf espresso, so I don't know that that's helping me get where I'm going, but I did coffee.
Yeah. So how has your week been?
Oh, it's busy. I'm busy, but good. Things are moving along. How about yourself?
Not bad. Finally recovered from my incident consuming too much of a cannabis edible last week. I'm not going to get into that too much during tonight's stream, but if you want to contact me privately, I can let you know exactly how horrific that can be. But yeah, after almost a week, because I think it was actually the night. It was after I did last week's live. It takes that long to recover. But yeah, I've been doing good otherwise. Work's been fine. So yeah, let's get this all started. I don't want to keep James waiting any longer. Sure, he is. I just see him sort of shrugging and like, nah. Oh, well, in that case, if he has a cat. If he has a cat, then show us that cat again.
Okay, hold on, Balder. You're going to say hi to a bunch of people. Here we go. Balder, internet, Balder.
Oh, hello, Balder.
Very cute. I am a cat person. I like dogs. I love cats. Grew up with cats.
I'm totally fine with any animals, but that's also very woke politics on my end. So there you go.
To care about animals.
To care about animals.
Yes.
In Seattle.
Yeah. I know. I love all little living things, even the living things that probably even the most woke people would be afraid of. You know, spiders are welcome in my home. They have just a right to be in my home as I do.
They're nature's brooms.
They are. They do a lot of hard work for us because they're very hungry little animals, very little hungry animals. So centipedes too. People are terrified of those, but they're wonderful creatures. Ah,
No, I'm
no,
gonna.
no. Leave them be. They're so much more afraid of you.
Well, that might be so, but I just no. Sorry, they're gonna step foot in my house. The centipedes gotta go.
No.
I thought you were about to sing like a disco song in like honor of centipedes if you knew one off the top of your head.
Falling like a centipede. Remember that tune? Ruby Jackson, the forgotten Jackson sibling.
I'm going to Spotify this later to fact check you.
Oh, it's real. It's
Okay.
real. It is very much real. And the video is even more real. And of course, Michael's doing background vocals because, just like LaToya, Ruby needed a little bit of help. She needed a little propping up. Okay. All right. Enough. It's so great to have you here.
Yeah. Thank you both for having me. Ryan, nice to meet you.
It's great to meet you too. I look forward to the conversation. I don't even know what the topic is tonight, JJ. Do we have a set topic? Are we just freewheeling?
We can freewheel. We can decide on a topic now.
Well, so I didn't know. I didn't know how the format plays itself out, but I did bring some fragrances with me that are unusual choices, if you will. So my husband and I went to Scotland last year for his birthday, and when we were in Oban, we stopped by this amazing store called Lidl, Lidl, and they have these fragrances there by the house of G. Bellini. And this one is a bee with Homme Paris. I think it's supposed to be Eau Sauvage, maybe. It's pretty fancy. It was like £3.
Can I'm going to have you in the spotlight here to see. I see what you're saying.
Is everyone jealous? I know you should be, because there's more. Wait. I also got, by G. Bellini Fragrances, Deep. and there's one more. G. Bellini Fragrances presents one fragrance.
One. Oh, just one. Just one fragrance.
Oh, just only a singular fragrance.
Just a singular fragrance. Yeah. So my husband was not thrilled with that. I had to go back to the store and buy these, and then I took them in our suitcase everywhere with us, and I brought them back home. But yeah, so I thought it would be kind of fun to introduce everybody to some different kind of fragrances that you might not otherwise buy.
I would say, have you worn them at any point?
I have not. But, it's Valentine's Day. Let's throw caution to the wind. And I'm within the reach of a bathroom, so that also helps. Let's start with Homme Paris. Oh, God.
I kind of like the direction this is going. This is really renegade. I love this. Tell us about it.
No.
Oh, you don't even need to use words.
Wow.
I take it there's just a huge spray of alcohol off the top there.
It's not the alcohol. It's the Evernil.
Oh.
And then you get that first initial blast of the Evernil, and then you get this god awful, like sugary maltal kind of event going on. I'm not really sure how to describe it. Wow, somebody made this. Okay.
That's one way of putting it.
That's one way of putting it. Wow. Okay.
Well, when you Google the House of G. Bellini, it doesn't look like a lot of fragrances come up, but one of them is called X-Bolt, which sounds like an interesting one. And then there's Wood. Just wood.
Well, I really wanted to get the X-Bolt, but they were sold out. And so the only ones I could buy were Deep, One Fragrance, and Homme Paris. And I do believe that they marketed these as for men, but I don't believe that fragrance has a gender. So why limit yourself? That if you are feeling adventurous, let's try one fragrance. I have a feeling this is probably going to be, I got that on my hand. I'm going to regret this later.
That's the worst.
Oh, yeah, wow. Okay, that is not what I expected. And it's like bubblegum.
Jeez.
Jesus.
Delightful.
Can I swear I should have asked first? Like priests and children. I always do that with the cuss word. I'm so sorry if I don't mean to take the Lord's name in vain in front of a bunch of people.
I think we'll survive.
Yeah.
Oh God,
Yeah,
that's
so-
like, yeah, it's like bubblegum and woody ambers and just.
Doesn't get much better than that.
Oh well, let's wait because they're still deep.
Mm. This must be the pièce de résistance.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm guessing aquatic vibes just off the name, but we will see.
Ooh, yeah, that's good. Let's have everyone guess. Like, what does everyone think deep is?
I wonder if it rivals Summer Breeze, which is really penetrating right now. I might have to scrub it during the live and have you guys take over.
What in God's green?
Wow, so I take it.
What is that? Oh my God. It's like the most banal soap. Like they all have this weird undercurrent of like the sugary aspect to it where like somebody was like, I just want something to smell like sugary. Like they're made for teenagers. Like if you're a teenage guy and you don't shower and you're trying to impress some girl and your breath is horrible and you just want to overpower her with scent, like these are the fragrances you would go for.
It really takes a certain talent to take something like a soapy accord and suck all the soul out of it and make it banal. Like,
wow.
So like, are these preferable to or worse than just like the laws of like
breaking news?
James is down. We're out.
Do
you need some water?
Streams. Don't cross streams. No, I do have tea because you did mention in our promotional for this event that I was going to spill the tea about the perfume industry. So I did bring.
I think that it's really been needed here. People are craving it. Yes. Just have a sip.
No. So it's interesting. Yeah. So earlier today, I had someone do an interview with me because they are looking to leave the advertising industry. They have 3 friends, and they want to release a fragrance. And so they wanted to pick my brain and understand just how easy it would be for them to make a fragrance. It was like, fire away, ask all of your questions. And I think by the time that he allotted 30 minutes and 60 minutes, he wanted to come back later and do another round of interviews, but also go back to his partners and say, do we understand how many permits it's going to take to create a fragrance? And do we have the warehouse space to make our own fragrance? And how much are we going to make for this? And then do we even have the money for the raw materials? And he was just focusing on the marketing and advertising of it. And I'm like, that's sweet. That's precious. Yeah. Like that's exactly where you want to start with a fragrance. Like let's not even worry about the work that has to go into actually making a fragrance.
Yeah, that's the spirit.
That's the spirit. Those things are all in my space now. Why? Okay. Oh God, I hope someone shoplifts those from me. Famous YouTuber, if you want the 1 million flankers, hit me up afterward and I will be proud. I will be happy to send you G. Bellini 1 fragrance. Just let me know. I will hook you up.
I mean, the hilarious thing about that is it's not that far off from the name of Jeremy Fragrance's like Fragrance 1. It's just,
that's exactly what I was thinking. Is it just a take on that? Is that really, how low brow this is that they're actually just taking that name? It's Pep is here. He's saying hi.
Hey Pep. Pep is awesome. I don't Jeremy Fragrance. That God bless him. Like that's a whole rap sheet of charges. I don't know if we want to talk about tonight.
You have made history on Effluvium. I think this is the first time he was even so much mentioned by name. So
we try not to talk about people who seem like they're having like mental breakdowns in real time, like on this, just out of like respect for mental health.
It's really hard to consistently get good Coke in Miami. So I think that you're just going to run into issues. Like that's what happens sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was
just watching it all in real time.
Actually, that's kind of how I talked about it with this guy. It was like the research part of that. A lot of people rush to market with a fragrance because they think it's very easy to launch something in the US because we don't have any rules or regulations like the rest of the world does. And so then you release a fragrance, and then you have this huge. It's not even a parabola. It's just like just a one long arching curve of success because you built up this buzz. You sent your stuff out to people, buzz, and then it launches, and then it just dies. And then you're the equivalent of a restaurant with a kids eat free menu outside, just like trying to advertise, get people in. And then you're cutting your prices. And eventually you close your doors because you assumed that you could make a living as a perfumer in the US with a fragrance that was like, $200 or $500 for a bottle. And thinking that would equal good and something that could be consumed over and over again by people. Like someone's going to grab a $500 bottle of fragrance and be like, I'm going to wear this every day until it wears out. And I'm just going to keep buying it until, and then just lather, rinse, repeat. And the kind of like, that's what I thought about with He Who Shall Not Be Named in Miami, who did all this work to produce this fragrance, launches it, and then it just winds up in like Flankerville or, these odd other sites where people are just not buying it because for all the hoopla, like it just wasn't good. Yeah. And fragrance is subjective.
But I mean, it's not even that, like that though, because the exact problem you had is you're seeing that at like every luxury niche house ever. Why is Tom Ford discontinuing stuff like after a 2-year run at this point?
Right, like the Rose series. The Rose series appeared and it was already discontinued within like 18 months.
Well, maybe also because some of the fragrances that made in that house aren't really good.
Well,
Lost Cherry, like hydrogen disappears after 5 seconds.
Oh, don't even get me fucking started with the cherry bombs. Oh, we have another panelist waiting. We have Rachel, and I'm going to bring her in. We're going to have 4. Rachel, hello.
Hi. Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
Good, girl.
Smelly, how are you?
I'm feeling like dirt. Because it smells like dirt on my wrist right now. It's like it's a dirty. Oh God! And the combination of Oscar for Men and this summer breeze on this wrist and this hand. No, that's gonna give me some nightmares.
I've always thought you were particularly adventurous when you sample things and you just spray like three things on skin that may like have nothing to do with each other. Yeah. Like all you need is one really loud screech.
Oh my God. There is one right now that is it's penetrating. It's the Aromas de Salazar Summer Breeze. And it's not making me feel fine at all. It's penetrating. It is like really I'm sorry. I'm not gonna, like this, people asked for it. I'm gonna be honest, when there is something that just smells like something's up, somebody's just playing around and doing a lot of stuff in their bedroom or their basement or their living room and throwing stuff together and creating a perfume house, a perfume brand. And a lot of people are going to pick up, even if they're not like experts. They may be nice. They may be trying to be like, oh, this smells nice.
It's cozy.
This is nice. Very nice. But they will know. They will know that. I think that, especially for people who are fragrance enthusiasts, they will be able to tell that things are not really coming together in whatever they're smelling that shows a sense of, I'm not even going to say mastery because that's kind of a loaded thing, but like, an ability to put together chords to create
Scale,
a perfume.
Proportion, balance.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I had the same impression of that house that you're talking about, Aromas de Salazar. It's a lot. It's a lot of it's kind of muddled and I feel like there's really interesting ideas that need to be clarified and need more time. And I look forward to what he does in the future. For me right now, there's not a lot that's really hitting.
Yeah, I think that's a very, it's a diplomatic way of saying it. I don't think that the guy is a lost cause. I don't know who he is. Like I just found him on Instagram recently. Seems like a nice enough guy. But I think that people are very eager, and I know I was one of them, and I had to give myself a reality check. And I think James, since we've known each other long enough, is because I met you through perfume making first and foremost before I started this whole like content creation stuff. That I got way ahead of myself, and I thought, now's the time. I think I'm ready to be a perfumer and have a product out there. And I had a rude awakening. I knew that I still had a lot of learning to do.
What's your brand journey?
What's that?
What's your brand journey?
My brand journey. Right now, this is my brand journey. Doing this. This is it. And then, I don't know. It's like, how do you address this in a way that's sensitive? I think that Rachel, you do that and you show that, you're expressing that there's potential there and you can tell that there's potential, but I don't know. I just think that an independent perfumer has a tendency, a lot of independent perfumers have a tendency to be too eager to get a product out there, to get something out there and to get the attention and to get the recognition that they feel they deserve before honing their craft. And there's a lot of it out there.
I've heard JJ and please James and Ryan tell me if this is complete BS, but from several professional perfumers that I know, they've told me that it takes, at least if you decide to train yourself the traditional way, through the school at a big company or through the traditional schools, et cetera, and that it takes at least 12 years to really master the art of perfumery, to really master materials, to go through a traditional training program to create perfume that is marketable.
What's your take on that, James?
So if my friend Pia, so she's done work for Beaufort of London. She did Chipmunk. She did the fragrance for Mustang. Love her to pieces. I visited her when I was in London last November. Her and Nick, love them to the moon and back. And yes, she would agree with that. I come from a punk background, and so for my world, especially in the punk music, is that it's DIY. Like, you don't know shit. Like, you're just coming together with your friends and you're like, let's make music. Fuck this squatter life. Let's make a bunch of money and let's just make music. So you pick up instruments, like it just looks right, it feels right to you, and you just bang it out until you figure out a song. And that's kind of how I did my work initially with the DIY ethos of that. It's taking materials and understanding how they work, and then reading a bunch of books. And it wasn't just like going on YouTube and seeing how people in their kitchen are like, I took vodka and honey and like shake it up with some lavender oil and like, ooh, I made a fragrance. It's more of like going through, trying to find all these really hard books, going to libraries, finding things that are out of print and reading. And so much of it goes past you when you're first reading this stuff. And you're just like, I don't know how to pronounce half these things. Like, what the fuck is citronellol?
And then trying to remember the difference between citronellol, the aldehyde, and then citronellol, OL, like the.
No, totally. But it's also and because there are schools here in the States where you can learn some basics of perfume, but there's no institution like you have in Europe. But then I would say in Europe, a lot of those institutions are gatekeeping. Because a friend of mine who is a Black woman, and if like anybody in this room is not white and not male, like, you know where this is going. She was shut out completely from the perfume community because they were just like, you're Black, you're a woman, you're old, like you can't do anything, just hit the road. And so she left crushed, and she's doing it again on her own as a hobby. And like, she's chosen something else in her life. But like, a big part of what she experienced in Europe was so much of like, you have to look like us and be like us in order to be us. And I thought what was really great about, especially being in America, so many of us are just like, fuck you, I'll do it myself. But then the flip side of that is that it's not the flip side. I think that it's also like, you have to have a certain level of humility that goes with that, because and I see this all the time, especially online, where people walk in and they're just like, I made this amazing fragrance. And then you're like, okay, great. What are your safety levels? Like, I don't need to worry about safety levels because this is the US and woo, fuck yeah, America. And then you're just like, okay, great. But then you're going to be like some perfumers who we all know that, where it burns people's skin and they have to spray it on people's hair or clothing because like it's too dangerous for your direct skin contact. And it's like, it smells great, but who can freaking wear it?
Yeah, that's so interesting. And just I'm guessing you're talking about Pia Long, who is amazing.
And she does everything by the book too. So when I like, so she's amazing.
She's fantastic. And yeah, I think that's so amazing that you're right. That attitude of, you know what, there is this power structure that is in perfume that is gatekeeping and that is keeping a lot of voices out, and fuck that. I mean, that's terrible. And I love that. That's something about niche and artisanal independent perfumery that's you know, recently that's come online and has been so kind of joyous and amazing, is that anyone can just start to learn the materials of perfumery and jump in it, which is fantastic. I think we need more education about, like, the way that kids learn like music in school or art in school. Like, kids should also be able to learn like even like words to describe scent, even just to start there, or, you know, different materials for fragrance. Like, we should all be learning this as a society. But I do think it's interesting though that like that it. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, it's okay.
In the room.
Oh my God.
How long,
I do that all the
James,
time.
I'm just curious, how long would you say, like, if you were to give advice to a young person, say someone in high school who really wanted to be a perfumer, like, and wanted to take that self-study track, how long would you say it would take for them if they wanted to do that way, to read those old books, to go find an old Jean Carl method book in the library or something, and really do it themselves, to focus on their own art and not really, you know, not be set in a groove by some institution, and really find their own voice? How long would it take for them to trust that they know what they're doing and put out their perfumes? Like, do you have a recommendation?
I mean, that's a good question. Like, I started in 2011, and then I launched my fragrance line in December online of 2015. And then, like, actually, this is my 7-year anniversary. So, like, I started selling to the public 7 years ago at a table in my friend's booth in a weekly market. And at the time, I was only doing naturals. I was only using oil because, for a lot of reasons in my head, I thought natural was natural being safe, chemical which was dangerous, and so only doing natural materials, only using oil because I didn't know anything about alcohol. And so then it was learning how to crawl, walk, and run in public, and making transitions from oil to alcohol, and then learning how alcohol works, and thinking that was a great solution. But then I can't ship it anywhere because it's now a hazardous material. Okay, well, now how do I do that? And I'm one of the few people that's ethical, where, like, I'm not popping an alcohol-based fragrance in the mail and just being like, you know, it's totally fine, it's a hydrosol, whatever. Like, no, I did the certification. Like, I did the hazmat certification. I worked with FedEx. I did all the right boxes, bought all the packaging. But then it was that I would sell a bottle for $79 for alcohol. Shipping was $122. And everybody was like, I would really love to try your fragrances, but I can't afford the shipping costs. And I was like, I totally get that. And I hit that wall so many times with people. So then I switched to water. So I'm like, there's got to be a solution here. Like, oil doesn't work with roller balls. Everything leaks. It's not a good thing. Alcohol is just too much to work with. So then I switched to water, and then figured out the chemistry of that. And again, there's nothing out there to show you how to do this. And so you've got to really be like, you got to think like a librarian. Like, you've got to research the Jesus out of Google, find everything you possibly can, and then build relationships with people where they're like, what do you want this stuff for? You're like, well, I'm going to make perfume. And, you know, having these back and forth conversations until they're like, okay, you're not crazy, we'll sell you stuff. And then figuring it out and, like, banging it out every day until I figured out how to get the proportions, even though, to, like, Joseph's earlier point, of the physical properties of my fragrances, because some are clear, some are not so clear, because you have to understand how water works with the surfactant blend of the fragrances. And so you have to know all this new information, and then you have to also, like, hear different safety levels, blah, 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 blah. But I was determined to crack this. And so I'm one of those people where I just, like, get laser focus, and I just do it every day. And so, like, I know that there are high school kids who are like, I would do laser focus every day, because if I don't, I'm going to, like, just run out of this fucking small town with, like, a carton of cigarettes and a bus ticket. So, like, I'm just going to learn how to do something else. Like, I went to, and I'm so sorry, I'm not name dropping. I went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, in really prestigious art school. But I also, in my class, was Jeremy Scott, the creative director of Moschino.
Mhm.
He grew up in Kansas and like fucking hated it. Like just his entire life, he was just like, fuck this city, fuck this state, fuck these people. And he learned Japanese. He taught himself Japanese, taught himself fashion design. Like he did all these amazing things, and then went to Pratt, and then like boom, now he's a creative director of Moschino. So like, I would say teenagers, they're pretty resourceful, and especially nowadays with TikTok and everything else that they can do, like they could figure this stuff out. But then also, I think what would be really great is that having the ability to constantly fail. Like I would tell those kids to like hammer it out and fail as much as you possibly can. Fuck it up every single time, because that's going to tell you what you did wrong and how to correct it. Because like, again, to think like Joseph's point, all these people launch stuff online and they think that like they have to be picture perfect. And there are people who follow me on Instagram and they're just like, coming soon. It's like, bitch, it's been 3 years. Fucking launch something. Like it doesn't have to be amazing. Just launch something. It's like, let people know who you are. So just, there's this weird thing of like, everybody has to be perfect. And like, you have to present yourself as like, Kim Kardashian or something. I don't know. And then you see like people like Jeremy Fragrance, where it's like, then you see him break down in real time. And you're like, ooh, fuck. But
that's like a cautionary tale right there. If you look at the, how he's evolved from where he came and becoming a YouTuber, and that's what it will do to you.
And I would tell the kids, just do it, figure it out. You're probably not going to get kids are not going to get jobs as perfumers, because like most every niche perfumer I know in the States, they're not going to hire you, A, because they don't pay themselves, and then B, they won't trust you for shit. It's like, and if you work for them, they're never going to hand you raw materials. They're going to hand you a compound and be like, mix this, and you will never know what's in that formula, because they will not want you to run off with that. And so it's easier. It's just easier for a bunch of teenagers to make stuff and like maybe send it to someone like Joseph and be like, hi, I made something in my bathroom, please smell it.
But that's an important thing right there, is just openness to feedback. I think you see a lot of people can be very sensitive about the creative process, and I understand that, because it's a very vulnerable act to say, look, I made something, tear it apart. But I think that's part of learning in any sort of skill, is kind of like what you said. It's not just failing, like but it's also just like being willing to like submit yourself to the surgical eye of someone who knows what they're doing. And that can be intimidating, but also thrilling, as someone who's done that, not in this medium, but in others, that, like musical training and things like that. That can be very exciting, but I think a lot of people have problems considering that as part of their creative journey.
Well, so going to art school, you have to learn how to detach yourself from your work, because your first year foundation is literally like your classmates tearing you apart. And if your classmate, and if they're not done, then your teacher tears you apart. Like I had this guy was in my light color design class. He could do oil painting. Like none of us could touch his level of skill. We were just like, how do you make skin glow? His paintings were gorgeous. Like if you handed me an oil brush and paints, like I could make mud. Every fucking time I would make mud. He could do beautiful paintings. And one day he brings it work, and like we're all gobsmacked by what he does. The teacher doesn't even miss a beat, doesn't blink, looks straight at him and says, maybe you should drop out and become a plumber and electrician. And just like ripped his soul. And like, but that was what it did. And then you leave art school and you are dead on the inside. You are just dead. And you can go to any job, you can go anywhere, and you can just be like, people can say stuff to you and you're like, cool. I am an empty shell. Like, I'm here for a paycheck. I'm going home. I'm going to cry into some ice cream. I'm going to get stoned off my fucking ass. And I'm going to come back tomorrow. I'm going to do it again because I'm dead. And like, that really helps. And like, I don't know if you necessarily need that. I don't know if that happens in other programs, or like, because I met people who are chemical engineers and like, they don't do that. Like for them, it's like, everything has to be exact. And like, you send something in, the teacher's like, nope, this doesn't match. And it's not subjective.
Yeah.
Like fragrance and art and music, all those things are subjective. And like, you have to have the ability to really truly detach yourself from your work.
Music is ruthless. Music is ruthless like that. That's one reason it was a career path for me that I opted out of, because it's just not, it's a hard thing. You have to really be obsessed with the act of creation to let it go through that. If it's something that you really just kind of love and want to keep on loving in like a nice, warm and fuzzy way, it's very hard to go through that process, especially when the creative is very political, which as we've already alluded to, is still very true of perfume to this day. If you're going into the industry proper, where it's about who you know, it's about those relationships, and there's just a lot of big egos in the space, right? So that any creative field is a very big is ego territory. So you're navigating that. That would be the same fashion industry, film industry, theater, anything like that is a very difficult space to navigate that way. So the people who do that are the people who can't do anything else in a lot of ways.
James, do you mind if I ask you just real quickly, because I was looking at your website earlier today, and I'm dying to try your fragrances because of your website. Actually, I was so, and I'd love to talk about your ethics behind the brand, because when I was looking at your website, everyone should go look at this website. It is amazing.
Please don't.
I honestly, no. I looked at every single thing, even down to like the law, like the technicalities.
Oh,
of
California
how the website
Proposition 65, yeah.
No, every single thing, because normally people don't actually care about those tiny little things on a website, but I can tell you actually thought about it, and you understand every single part of your website, and you have an ethical idea, and like you really know what's on every part of your website, and you really have a belief or a position, or you really dug down deep and are able to articulate what you think, or where you stand on every single part of what is in your website. And I think that's brilliant. No one does that, right? People just go with the standard whatever, but like you've really thought about these things. And I don't know if you would mind like talking a little bit about the kind of the ethics behind your thinking about creating perfume.
Okay, well, so first of all, thank you. I have high functioning anxiety, so I don't do compliments really well at all. Please, nobody look at my website right now. Just ignore it, because I already told Joseph, I'm like, no fucking infomercial tonight. Like, I don't want you to smell my stuff, and it's like, this is an infomercial, and like, for $19.95 you can order this stuff, and we'll include free shipping, and if you get this today, I'll throw in a soap ball.
Right. With your host Erin Gray of Battlestar Galactica and Silver Spoons fame. The Anushka. I don't know if anybody remembers this. I'm dating myself. Early 90s. Yeah, but please proceed.
God, now it's like, could we all just get matching wigs and do the rest of this in the wigs? All right. I'm one of those people early on in life that I've learned that if you do things unethically, like it comes to bite me in the ass really, really hard. And so I wanted to try and I wanted to be as transparent as possible with everything that I do. So, because that's also one of the things that really it irks me to no end when a lot of people launch a perfume on like social media, or they launch a brand, and then you go to look at their website and it's like they didn't list the allergens in the fragrance. Like you have no idea what's in the fragrance. They're just like, it smells like this and it contains vetiver, and you're like, cool. Would there happen to be any allergens that people need to be aware of? And it's like nobody does, and nobody looks at this stuff. And it's that I find that to be very irresponsible. Where if you're going to be in this industry and you're going to be making money doing this, like the first thing you need to do is you need to be taking care of your customers. Like, because you don't want somebody, I've only ever had one return for my fragrances, and that's because someone bought something and they have eczema. And I'm like, if you had told me you had eczema, I wouldn't have sold you a fragrance, because like that's just not a good combination, especially at the time it was an alcohol-based fragrance. I'm like, oh God, please don't do that. But so like that was a really big driving part of my brand, is that I think it's important for people to know what they're buying. And so I don't do the clean beauty bullshit stuff. Like I don't believe in like, it's white supremacy, it's classism. It's
right.
Bullshit.
Greenwashing totally is 100%.
Fucking hate it. Where it's like, especially if people are like, we don't use parabens and we're non-toxic, and like another brand who, we're biodegradable. No shit, you're fucking biodegradable. You're a fucking perfume. Like what? Like what? It's a vinyl chloride you're spraying on your skin. Like what the fuck does that mean? Biodegradable.
Or what is it? What is the other thing I'd love to see? Like gluten-free perfumes.
Gwyneth fucking Paltrow every fucking time.
Oh, Goop. Or Amanda Chantal Bacon. You should
Amanda
look her
Chantal
up.
Bacon lettuce tomato wrap. Yeah, she's one of my favorites.
No, you have to look up Amanda.
Oh no,
Chantal
I
Bacon.
know her.
Oh!
I know her. I know her.
Amanda Chantal Bacon. This is what I have in a day. She has like opal dust in her smoothies.
It drives me crazy because those are the things of like that people will say like we're non-toxic or we're hypoallergenic, and it's like these things aren't true, and it's like greenwashing that just drives me fucking crazy. Or there are perfumers who they mean well, their heart's in the right place, but then they do these posts where they're just like Castoreum used to flavor vanilla and raspberries, and you're like, that is bullshit. Cite your sources. I'm not a librarian, but like I just want to be a librarian every time where I'm like, cite your fucking sources. Show me where a Castoreum has ever flavored vanilla and beaver, and like I will hand you my virginity.
A raspberry
on a
too.
plate.
Yeah.
Drives me batshit crazy.
But I've never heard that one. This is new.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It pisses me off the same way that Makrut lime is used to represent bergamot.
Wait,
like so much like just straight up like no, that's wrong. And then like there are situations where I'll correct it, and they're like, no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. That is a bergamot. Yes, Castoreum was used in flavoring. I know because it's on the internet.
And James, and I know you don't like compliments. I'm sorry, but you have the best fragrance website I've ever seen. Professional, artisanal, whatever. I'm serious. I wish they were all as you're just like transparent, ethical, accurate, sources cited. Like it's everyone needs to go.
See, he's fanning himself right now.
I'm not because no. It's also because I know like my husband's home and he's trying to be really quiet, and like because it's Valentine's Day. It's like, oh, I can totally do this live stream because we're old. We've been together for like 15 years. Like nobody fucking cares about Valentine's Day. He made fucking dinner by hand. Like he made a pistachio tiramisu, and then he made gnocchi by hand last night. And like he was just like, you gotta do the pesto. And I'm like, oh yeah, 2 can play this game, motherfucker. So I bought him like a brand new Whitney Houston album because he loves Whitney Houston. And it's her greatest hits. I Will Always Love You. And I'm like, yeah, Valentine's Day, bitch. All right. But yeah, also so like he knows that I don't do really well with comments either. That said. So I'm also a goddamn dirty hippie socialist like Gen Xer. And so for me, it's the...
Welcome to the club.
Well, I mean, so because politics are personal and this brand is very personal to me. And so it's very important that people who buy from me, they don't have to think like me, but they need to be aware of my own personal politics, which like find themselves in my fragrances. So like when my mom died of COVID, I made a fragrance in memory of her. So like it was my fragrance I called A Way to Say Goodbye. Oh, cute baby. But then Laughing with a Mouthful of Blood, I created that after Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, and I got really pissed off. And so I made the fragrance to split the cost between, or not the cost, the proceeds are split between the Bridget Alliance, which is an abortion network, and Transpire Oklahoma to help LGBTQ services in Oklahoma where they need it most. Mm-hmm. And then also because I love animals of all shapes and sizes, I donate a portion of my sales to the Seattle Animal Shelter every year. I also believe in like, I'm living in Seattle and I'm on occupied Duwamish land. And so I pay real rent to the Duwamish tribe every month because of that. I try not to use a lot of plastic, and like I'm down to like the very last of my plastic for packaging when I ship things out. And so I'll be going to like almost all entire paper. I want to be as inclusive as possible for my fragrance line. So I'm actually changing the packaging. So, people who have disabilities are not going to be able to open up a box easily and close it. And so I'm working on using tubes, which was also what I originally started when I first made my fragrances as an homage to my grandmother, because she just give us like cigar tubes full of dimes. And so I did tubes originally for her, but then people were like, tubes are really hard retail wise. And I'm like, I don't fucking care anymore. So I'm going to go back to using tubes because they're really easy for people with disabilities to open and close. So try to wrap all those things into one place as much as possible, because I'm not going to be making a lot of money with this. Like it's my brand, it's my house, but like I'm not expecting to live like Scrooge McDuck. So if people buy from me, that's super awesome. And like, I really appreciate it. But like, if people don't, that's fine too, because it's subjective. And if people are like, I don't like your politics, I'm like, I don't fucking care. Like last year, I got really ticked off at, God, I'm so sorry. Like, so sorry I comment with people, watching people. I'm going to try and like keep the diatribe down. I got really pissed off at what was happening with the state of politics last year, like up until, and I got really mad that people just didn't really seem to be doing much of anything and getting off their asses and voting. And so I made a requirement for my site, like if you wanted to buy from me, you had to send me a screenshot of you talking to your elected representatives and that you were demanding change or action in some way, or that you had to be a registered voter. And if you did these things and send me screenshots, I would let you buy something. And people thought I was joking. And I'm like, I'm fucking serious. And so I canceled like $1,000 in sales, and people were buying stuff from me. And I sent it back and I'm like, send me your screenshots. And I'm like, I don't want to, I'm too tired. I'm like, bye, here's your money back.
That's amazing. I love this politics of liberation. It's fantastic. I think it's amazing. And I love that you're doing that. And yes,
Thank you.
just, that's so awesome. I wish more people would, because I know it's so hard. It's so hard to like take action steps that have a potential to impact oneself negatively. But you know, in a democracy, these are the kinds of actions that we have. In a capitalist society, these are the kind of actions that we have, and it's brave. And it's so commendable, and yay.
Thank you. Yeah, like it's a friend of mine. She's a perfumer in Portland. We were joking about it. Like, we're never going to make any money because we get so mad about the politics in the United States that we're constantly donating to causes because we're trying to make change. And so like, people think, especially like if you're going to be a perfumer, you're going to live off the fat of the land. And it's like, you're lucky if you draw $30 to pay yourself. Because like everything is either getting donated to action causes, or I'm just going back and like right now I'm moving into a new space in 700 square feet, and I have to like do everything myself, and like painting supplies, caulking supplies, all these other materials. And like once I get the electrician in there and everything else, then I can finally put money aside to buy a kilogram of this absolute that I need. That's $3,000.
And on that note,
that's no way to talk about America's favorite drag queen. I'm located in Seattle, Washington, where the sun never comes out and it's always raining, which is always kind of fun when people move here in the summertime. They're like, "Oh, this is such a great place," and you're like, "Uh-huh," and then you just wait for wintertime to come, and then people are like, "No one talks to me," and it's never bright out, and it's always gray, and you're like, "Uh-huh," and then they just move back to wherever they came from, and it's fun.
Right. James, can I ask you kind of a practical question? I see
Sure.
on your website that there's a sample set where you can pick like 7. And then I saw mention that there maybe at one point was a sample that you could get like a sample of all 19 fragrances. Is that option no longer available?
Oh, that one's gone. And in that
Sold out.
if you found that, I need to hide that. No, so like I actually have like, oh my God, what do I have? 48 fragrances now.
Oh.
I've actually had people I've had a few people who bought all of them, and I always try to include free samples, and I was like, shit, because they bought them all. So I'm like, I didn't know what, so like I was just throwing like random stuff in there where I'm just like, here's a paper clip, and like here's one of my favorite pens, like here you go. Yeah, so it was I have quite a large set, but like usually people will buy, and if you go to my studio, it's like you can smell to your heart's content. And normally like I knock people out in an hour because they're just like, yeah, I can totally do this, and you're like, and then nose fatigue kicks in, and they're like, I have to quit. I'm tapping out. Like, you knocked me.
May I ask if you have like people out there listening, or for me, I haven't smelled any of your fragrances, and I'm absolutely dying to, and I'm going to order them really soon. But are there any in particular that you would recommend for someone who doesn't know anything about your brand to smell? Maybe some that you're really proud of, or maybe represent your style in some way, or any that you would just say, hey, this is really me. You should really smell this, or maybe not.
Well, so Joseph has my stuff, so if he wants to like put me on blast, he can. But I would like, Ricky asked, have you ever felt the need to release a mass appealing fragrance to help other projects? So I do have one fragrance that I created to help the White Helmets, Syrian Civil Defense, and so that's a Resin of Joy, and that's like an oil-based fragrance, because I do have clients who don't necessarily use alcohol, and so like that is like a whole different mixture of materials that I can't actually get anymore, because originally when I started doing naturals, I was buying from hippie woo-woo people, and they had like amazing stuff, but then they all retired, and like you just can't get those materials anymore. I mean, there is a actually large consortium of perfumers in the United States. So like we are crying out for saffron as a carbon dioxide extraction, not an absolute. There was a carbon dioxide extraction of saffron that was so fucking gorgeous. Like all of us were like, we should never have used it because now we don't have it anymore. And if anybody ever made that, shit.
That good, huh?
That good. It was so
Wow.
good. It was so good. But yeah, so Joseph, if you, so I sent him, tell me about the forest he once called home. So like I did that for the National Nordic Museum because they asked me to create a fragrance for their museum store. And so the only kind of constraint they gave me was that they wanted Arctic thyme in the fragrance. And so I had to try and figure out, all right, how to get my hands on Arctic thyme. And that was a little bit of a struggle to like figure out how to do that and then build the accord and then mix it with the other materials. And so then I gave that to him as a fragrance, obviously going through the trials up and down, like this, like that, blah, blah, blah. Finally released it and they're like, hey, this is great. Can we also get it as a soap? And I'm like, yeah, sure, soap. I know how to make soap. It's only going and learning how to do soap making. So they made them a soap bar. And then they were like, hey, this is great. Can we also get a candle? I'm like, candles are hard. Candles are so hard.
Yeah, those are very challenging.
People think that candles are so easy, but like, fuck, they're hard.
Are they really? Because
They really are.
mean, I've messed around with it and felt like I came out with half decent stuff. So
I think if you're using like pre-made fragrance oils, maybe, but if you're fragrance oils that are made for candles are formulated so differently. That's why most people who are making candles use the pre-made oils. But if you're composing something specifically for a candle from the the bottom up, it's really difficult. It's completely a different approach. Sorry, I'm just
I'm not. So how about like bar soap versus a spray fragrance? Because I've tried bar soap versions of fragrances I've liked in the past, and usually I find them substantially different. So I'm always curious of that.
Well, so that comment's a hate crime, first of all. Secondly, so bar soap. So I do bar soap and I do scented body wash. And here's the other.
Wait, James. I think he just meant like trying to make them. I think so. I think that's what Darren meant by it.
Oh, then yes, that's absolutely true. Making candles is terrible, Darren. I am so sorry. I apologize. But like, it was just like, no, candles are wonderful because like all of my friends make candles, but like they're super fucking hard. But yeah, so you got to do the wick, the wax, the actual ingredient itself to like throw the scent, and then the container. And you have to do iterations of all of those to get everything right, because you have to have the wax pool set correctly. And then after the candle extinguishes, and you have to have the wax remember itself. You can't have the wick be too big. You can't have too many soot. And then you gotta make sure that the throw is really nice. And like, it's so hard to get that right. Yes, it is so hard to convert that perfume formula. And when I first started out doing this kind of work and then joining market events, and I started out doing Renegade Craft Fair because I thought like, oh, if I do Renegade Craft Fair, I can get myself out there, introduce myself to people, which was like, I mean, I don't ever want to have to do that again. There's nothing more dehumanizing than trying to sell your work and having people stand in front of your booth and just talk to each other and completely ignore you while everybody else is walking by. And it's like, and if you do that at market events, you belong in a 10th circle of hell. Like Dante never wrote that, but if you are those people, you belong in that 10th circle of hell. Because like people are trying to make money. Like if you're not like smelling stuff, like jog on, like move it, keep it moving. But like standing in front of someone's table and just like talking to each other and like ignoring stuff, it's like, please leave. And it's so horribly dehumanizing, especially when you're standing there all day. But the point though is that there was a guy who was selling candles, and his candles were just like going crazy, and people were just like loving them, and like they love the scent of them. And I legitimately thought that he was making the fragrances himself. I swear on a stack of Bibles, I really thought that he was doing all these fragrances from hand, and he figured the whole thing out. No, that motherfucker was driving up to Bellingham, Washington, buying all the fragrance oils and the soy wax, just melting them in the batches and then making candles. And that's how he sold the stuff. And I'm like, you candle faker. You motherfucker.
Good money if you can make it, I guess.
Yeah, because like,
so politics and fragrance, I keep those separate. I can respect that. I think it depends on what relationship we have to fragrance. I don't necessarily get terribly political with my writing when it comes to fragrance, but that doesn't mean that won't change in the future if the opportunity permits. But I think it's commendable if somebody does incorporate politics into what they do. And also, one can argue that it's inextricable, much like it is for fashion or other forms of art. It's hard to ignore it and avoid it. It's interwoven into fragrance, much as it is with fashion and music and other forms of expression and art. So,
yeah, and I've been out of the closet since I was 15. So like I'm queer as a $3 bill, and I'm gonna be 49 this year. So like I don't give a flying fuck if like you people have a problem with my politics, because like to exist in a heteronormative society in the United States that doesn't fit a cis het world, like every day is going to be like you fighting against some kind of system. And so like the personal and the political are always going to be interwoven. And if you don't participate in that, like you don't have to participate in that. But for everybody else, like we're going to create a community for ourselves where nobody else would make space for us. And we can do that with our money. We can do that with our music. We can do that with our culture. We can do that with our communities. But like that's just how it's going to be. And like, and it's not something that you're forced to do. Like you can be a part of it, or you can choose not to be. But I mean, for a lot of us, it's like that's just who we are. And we're going to be unapologetic about it.
Yeah,
Awesome.
And I got to completely respect and honor that. It needs to be honored, and there needs to be space for it, and especially with things being, so tenuous right now. And I use the word tenuous maybe as a euphemism, because maybe I have a little bit of fear of getting a little too overly political on my own forum. But there needs to be more openness and less apathy.
Well, also like, BIPOC perfume creators are just, they exist, but like they don't really get the same exposure that white people do in the perfume community. And so there are a lot of Black perfumers that I know. There are a lot of Asian perfumers that I know. And I'm all about creating community with other perfumers. And so like, if anybody's ever like, hey, can we be friends? I'm like, yeah, totally. Like, let's all help each other out. Like, let's do shout outs. And so when people are asking online, like, does anybody know any Black perfumers? I'm like, here's a list. Do you want Asian Pacific Islander? Do you want Asian American? Like, what do you want? Like, I've got these people. I've got you. Totally help you out, because it creates the communities that we're all looking for. Like, it creates inclusivity. It gives everybody a fair seat at the table, because otherwise it's like, it's just four white people talking about fragrance, where like, you're ignoring the fact that like Black people spend a shit ton of money, and like they love fragrances as much as anybody else. But it's like, do they get the same shake in perfume spaces like everybody else does?
Do you want to clarify this, James? Would you say this is true, or I think what you were describing earlier doesn't necessarily mean that you were expecting people to publicly disclose their politics, but that they were just politically engaged. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that was it. But also like with my store though, like if I when I opened my store and like somebody walked in with a MAGA hat on, I'd be like, you have two options: give me your hat, they can throw it in the trash, or get the fuck out.
But you also have a right as a business owner. You have a right, and other people may disagree with that, but that is totally fine. That is the decision that one makes as a consumer.
Absolutely.
So I think that there's a difference between disagreeing with someone who is a business owner and a perfumer, and outwardly scorning their right to make their decisions as a business owner and a perfumer. I feel like it's hitting a few chords with some people in the discussion, but this is the thing. This is this is what a business owner, a perfumer, an artist especially. Come on. Like, if we're going to talk about perfume as art, but then we're going to expect that not to be part of the dialogue.
Well,
we want.
I think people talk a big game about thinking about fragrance as art, but they actually don't think of it as art. They think of it as a commodity. Everybody on FragCom treats it as a commodity. That's why you have pictures of walls of fragrance. It's not like show off my shelves of luxury bottles of perfume is not like not even close to. And I mean, you can do luxury politics with paintings as much as you want, but it's not the same as like showing, here's my art gallery. I want you to think about all these, paintings and have a painting experience with that. Fragrance has been very much a commoditized thing. And I think people, and we can perhaps all be guilty of this to a point, bring out fragrance as art when we want to legitimize it. But
when it's convenient, often it seems to be when it's convenient.
When it's convenient, but I think the idea of fragrance as art and as actual articulated speech art in a very particular, like something that is very intentionally and purposeful, not just like an abstract experience, is going to be very uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I 100% want to convey to the audience here that it has room at the table. It is needed at the table, much like with any other medium. So even if you disagree with it, you honor it.
I think it's interesting because this is a very strong. Frankly, it's a very unique stance that James has taken to take his business as political as that. Are there other major examples of fragrance being released not by punk rock indie perfumers, so to speak, like James, where we could point to fragrance as speech? If we were talking about like the canonical list, like if I were to look up like a canonical list of fragrance history outside of fragrance from the last 30 years, is there any fragrance on that list that we would think of as political speech?
I mean, you could say broadly, when fragrances started naming what is masculine and feminine, I mean, that's definitely a political act, right?
But perhaps not like intentionally in that way.
Well, but you have like Yves Saint Laurent, Opium, and the choice there was made there. Like there were active choices that were made within the fragrance world because they knew that it was going to shock and awe, would create a marketing edge and give them buzz power, and like that's how they drove it. I think also when you have companies that they've taken strides like Tom Ford, where make a fragrance called fucking fabulous because it's going to shock people, and so you're making these your active choices of how you're going to create a fragrance and what you're going to call it in a way to drive market opinion and also market visibility. So it does exist in different forms, and sometimes it could be controlled by one person, an entity, and sometimes it can be controlled by a corporation and a huge marketing agency behind it. It just depends on where those worlds are. Then you have Free State of Orange, and they make quite a number of fragrances that have been that they originally named and then they had to rename because they got into trouble for the choices that they made.
And I would say, I mean, isn't there that new fragrance museum, right, in New York, the Kellen Fragrance Museum, where it very purposefully is an entire museum dedicated to fragrance with exactly that kind of intellectual, like speech art as the point, right? Where people have been exhibiting now for 5 years. And so it definitely exists. And there's the experimental art perfumery festival in California, Northern California, every year. So there are spaces where this exists. And they're in the more artisanal and niche areas, but it definitely exists. And I think, that's right. Isn't that the kind of creative edge, much like haute couture fashion, where a lot of this commercial stuff gets its ideas, right? It might, in some sense, might be driving the discussion.
But also, I think to your point, when you said, like the masculine and feminine, I think when people come to me and they say, what do you have for a guy? What do you have for, and I don't, because I say, like, I don't have, like, my fragrances are genderless. Like, gender is a social construct. Like, you can wear whatever you want. And and I have clientele that also believe it. Like I have people who are gender queer, gender fluid, non-binary, and they will pick up fragrances that you would think traditionally, oh, it has flowers, it has to be for a woman, and they wear them. I have a customer, she's a 6'3" rockabilly chick, and she does roller derby, and she loves my fragrance that's tobacco and whiskey. People can wear whatever they want. I think that that's also, it's.
Sorry, I'm covering your face here, James.
No, it's totally fine. You can cover my face. It's just more of, I think that what's nice about it is that there is space for everybody. There's enough space for everyone. So like, if there are people out there that like want to like get into Jeremy fragrance stuff because they love his idea of like, it has to be something for power and like, whatever he thinks that he can do with women, like, yeah, go crazy, not buy his stuff, like by all means. But I mean, there's enough of us out there that like, there's so many different things to choose from. I think for me, it's more of that. I think it's important that everybody gets fair representation and gets fair amount of visibility into those spaces, because I mean, when people come to my store and they want to smell stuff, like I have other perfumers that I'm friends with that like to have their samples in the store too. And I'm like, oh, you might like this one. And like, I'm introducing them to other brands as well. And it's like, I'm not worried. I mean, they buy a bottle for me or they don't buy a bottle for me, but like still like supporting community.
And do you mind if I ask, James, you mentioned the Arctic thyme, and you've mentioned some other interesting materials. Do you create any of your own materials? Do you tincture or do any mess around with anything like that, enfleurage or anything?
So Rachel, just 1 second. I do want to just highlight Dave's comment here. I appreciate open-minded views when discussing politics. Most oftentimes people are far too quick to judge and talk down to others when they don't agree with something. That drives me crazy. And I 100% completely concur. I'm not very open, 100% about my own political beliefs, and that's my own decision here. But I don't necessarily think it's fair to put somebody into sort of it. Just I want my audience to realize like that this is the reality. This is the reality. We can't hide from this conversation. And I want this conversation to be an open one, because that's part of, the whole reason for why I started doing Effluvium. But carry on. I'm sorry, Rachel. If you do want to repeat what you were asking.
Oh, I was just wondering if James made any, if there's any tinctures or creates any of the materials he works with.
Well, so because I think it was also like somebody asked in the comments about the sustainability practices, because I did have somebody who asked me like, hey, how sustainable is your work? And I told them like, it's not. Like, it flat out isn't. Like what I do have is I have relationships with a lot of suppliers, and like, I try to know as many of the people I work with as possible, because like that to me is important, because it just ensures that like we're helping each other out. Like I use Olive Absolute in a few of my fragrances. And so I work with this family, like they produce it in Egypt, and like they've been doing this it's a family owned company. They've been doing this for decades, and I buy from them quite often. There are other people that I have relationships with in terms of suppliers, where like they will message me and they're like, hey, we got something else in, or I'm asking if they know like if I can get these other materials. And like, that's really important. But I think it's really, if you're going to be in perfume, you have to make peace with the fact that if you're only doing naturals, it's going to be physically impossible for you to do that unless you are distilling those perfumes yourself, those fragrance materials. And I know two people who do that, like Dryland Wilds in New Mexico. So like their whole business practice is that they take invasive species in New Mexico, harvest them, and then make fragrances and fragrance products out of those materials that they themselves harvested and distilled. And so like that's truly the only brand I know of that's technically sustainable. But then unless you're making your own paper, and unless you're making your own metal, and you're making your own plastic, you're making your own packaging, like there's no such thing as sustainability. Like it's not realistic. Like so I mean, I tell people like I work with a family owned printing company in China because they're amazing. And like I've tried working with American people, but they don't work with my minimum order quantities because they want you to work in tens of thousands of pieces. And they don't do anything in imperial. They do everything in imperial. They don't do metric. And I know this family, and they're just like, they send me pictures when they do the Dragon Boat Festival, and like they tell me when they're closed for the Chinese New Year. But like I never have any issues working with them, and like samples are always really on time. I've never had any printing issues with them, and they're fantastic. So for me, it's not, I can't really be sustainable as a perfume brand, but what I try to do is I try to be as ethically responsible as possible and just have those relationships with people. I have been told by Ellen Covey of, because like she Olympic orchids. So like she told me once if I did like sulfur in a tincture, I can make the scent of gunpowder, which I haven't done yet. But I mean, I know a woman, Cherry Lily Valley Lilacs, and she does a lilac enfleurage, which is amazing, but it's also super expensive. And Dryland Wilds, they do their own enfleurage. I just don't have the room and the space and the time to do an enfleurage of materials. Like it would just be when you have 700, when you're moving to 700 square feet of space, like there's just no place to put all that.
So then like collabs are really important to you. Like you seem to be always mentioning the different partners that you're working with. And so this ethical relationship and collaborations are really kind of, those are the important things to you right now.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, they always have been. I mean, because then those relationships, like they in turn are beneficial in the long run. So like so the family, the couple that found the most amazing hippie woo-woo stuff, they were the sweetest couple, and then they retired. They moved to the peninsula and they retired. And they would always be like, hey, send me pictures of your cats and I'll just like do these drawings of your cats for you. And I'm like, yeah, sure, this is great. But then once they move on, they put you in touch with other people so that you can help continue your perfume company. And then like I work a lot with even botanical materials for a lot of my naturals, but then they got bought out by Biolands. And so then I got in touch with and they put me in touch with Biolands, and I have a relationship with them. And so when they come to town, they bring me all their sample stuff. So they're turning me on to new things. And they're like, hey, have you ever smelled Cork Absolute? And I'm like, no, I have not smelled Cork Absolute. I would love to smell Cork Absolute. And then they also have brand and some amazing stuff. And so like these relationships kind of like in turn help develop other relationships. And so that like I can email the people who supply my bottles, my packaging, my labels. Like it just, there's an inherent trust with each other because like we've built up really good working relationships. And so we know that like if somebody needed something, we can refer other people around, and just it's beneficial.
James, there's this beautiful rose fragrance. It's a very stemmy and green rose fragrance that I sampled today, and it's called "You Are My Sister." Can you tell us a little bit about this one?
Everybody in comments, you're going to have to deal with this. All right. So my sister, she is my youngest sibling. When she was 7 years old, she was hit by a car. And she has been disabled for the rest of her life. My brother and I are her caretakers. And so for me, disability and inclusivity are incredibly important. And so that's why I take them very seriously. She requires 24/7 care. So I help my brother out whenever I can and like go visit them and like hang out with her and like treat her like a princess. And we do all these great things. And she asked me to create a rose fragrance for her. And because it was something that that's the only thing she ever asked of me. She's like, I just want a rose fragrance. So I worked really hard on the rose fragrance for her. And the inspiration for the actual rose was the Taif rose. And so I got a sample of that once through my relationships. And I only got a grade 2 sample of it. And it was so amazing. But that grade 2 sample was like $2,000 an ounce, which is just way too, like not even a kilogram, but just an ounce. And I'm like, okay, I will build an accord off of that because I am not buying, like I love my sister, but I don't have $2,000 an ounce. Yeah. So I created that fragrance for her, and then I called it, "Yeah, You Are My Sister and I Love You." And then I also made it as a soap. So she loves the color pink. She actually loves the color orange, but yeah, so I don't really have like an orange clay that works as well. So I use a French clay to do the pigmentation for the soap. And then, yeah, and then so the rose fragrance, which when I let Pia smell it, she was just like, oh, it's geranium. I'm like, it's not geranium, it's rose.
Geranium. Well, you know,
she's like, it's geranium. I'm like, no, it's not geranium, it's rose. But yeah.
No, I
agree to disagree.
To me, it immediately reads as rose. It reads as like a dewy, stemmy, leafy, full rose bush kind of rose. And I was just so struck by it. I'm like, it's just beautiful in its simplicity, not being anything else but a beautiful representation of rose. And I was so struck by it. because I was sort of priding myself, like these are going to be some really, like I'm going to have to wrap my head around some of these. And I was just like, oh, wow. There is another one that I was quite fascinated with, and I was drawn to it because of its now. I don't know if we've touched on this already, but the creations, most of the creations that I have, the samples, are inspired by bands or musicians. And this one, Opening, inspired by Philip Glass, really struck me.
So originally when I did Opening, and there's no political anything behind that, guys. It's just I love Philip Glass.
He's like a palate cleanser for
Cleanser.
politics. Yes.
He's a palate cleanser for politics. So originally when I did that, I did it as an alcohol fragrance sketch and not the water base. And I sent a sample of it to a customer who's bought so much from me. I ran out of samples to give her. So I'm just like, okay, I'm going to give you a fragrance sketch. And I sent her the fragrance sketch, and she was like, I'm crying and I need this as a fragrance. And it was like, well, I would love to sell it to you, but you can't actually put that on your skin because the citral content in there is through the roof. And so you can spray it on your hair, spray it on your scarf, but like, do not spray that on your skin. And she's like, I have to have this as a fragrance. So then it was like, okay, go back to the drawing board as a water-based fragrance, figure out how to still deliver that same punch of lemongrass that's in there. Because like, I should talk about my fragrances. I'm really bad at this shit. Okay. Opening is coconut and jasmine, just like right off the bat. But then you also get like this big burst of lemongrass. And then I use oud, sandalwood, ply, macroot lime leaf, benzoin, nutmeg. I think I did clove in there as well. So it's a woody, spicy, gourmand floral scent. And the lemongrass in it was beautiful, but the citral that's present in lemongrass was just way too high. And so I had to figure out how to adjust that to still deliver that punch of lemongrass, but not, but also be safe for the skin. So it took me a while to figure out how to get that right. And then I basically just kept sending her the iterations because she was the one who's like, I have to have this as a fragrance. So when she was finally like, this is the one, I was like, sweet. Okay. Now I can go ahead and just like let this macerate for a while and leave it alone for a bit and like come back to it and see if it's still working how it's supposed to. And it was. And so yeah, then I released Opening, which if you love coconut and jasmine and lemongrass, like that's going to be your jam.
Do you know what it reminds me of? So there's some lantana flowers that have like a strong aroma to them. And some of it kind of reminds me of like lantana flower. I sprayed it again, and in the top notes, it's because of that citral. But
it's safe for your skin. Like you're not going to die.
And this is what I was talking about earlier with the opacity with this water-based perfume. So unlike with perfumers' alcohol, where certain materials, the solubility is different in perfumers' alcohol, with these water-based perfumes, you get these beautiful, like opaque color, like milky color. And I find it to actually be visually quite compelling to me. I love it. There's another one here, Tales of Us. This one was inspired by the group Goldfrapp, or Alison Goldfrapp.
Oh, I love that album.
Yeah.
That's Goldfrapp is a...
And I wore this earlier. I'm going to put it on again. And oh, wow. I love this. This is to me, the jasmine. Can you tell us a little bit about this one, James? Because I actually, and I'm sorry, I know that you don't like all of this. I know I'm being an Aaron Gray, I'm being a Dionne Warwick now. We're turning into an infomercial, and I'm just talking about all of your wares here. But I can't help it because I was just so moved by a lot of what you make. Can you just tell us a little bit about the background of this one? Because I loved it.
Yeah. Okay. So Tales of Us is neroli, jasmine, gardenia, and musk, and that's it. And because like the hippie woo-woo couple that I knew that I love, they sold a gardenia tiare absolute, which was beautiful, super expensive, really something I would love to work with all the time. But then they retired, and then absolute kind of went away with them. So it was a big part of it was trying to figure out how to recreate the gardenia note that would also work with jasmine, but still be apart from the neroli. And so that was trying to do a lot of and I was doing a lot of research. I love making floral notes, by the way. Like people always told me like, don't do flowers because like I hate flowers. I'm like, then I'm gonna do flowers. And yeah, so like the indole in there is off the charts.
Love it though.
But yeah, like I do love a good indolic compound. And so like making sure that each of those were present, but then also with the musk and the base. And so it they're and honestly, like the album Tales of Us, like Drew and Annabelle were the two songs in there that really did inspire that fragrance. And because when I heard those songs in my head, like I just thought of like the white florals and just like the softness of them opening, and it became kind of like this really weird, hazy vision of like almost like a Karen Black horror movie from the 70s, like the way that the flowers were like Vaseline on the lens, and you have all these white flowers with the musk, and then went through a few different iterations of that. The jasmine in there, the jasmine accord, like that was something that I was really proud of because it took a long time to get the jasmine just right. I mean, actually it took a long time to even get the neroli and the gardenia in there, but yeah, like jasmine is something that you can easily fuck up because everyone's like, oh, you just throw hedione in something and call it a day. And it's like, oh, man, I wish if only. But yeah, so like that was, I released that 2019, 2020. But yeah, like that, I'm glad you like that. Thank you. It's, but yeah, what's fun about that one is that the indole is actually, it also gives it that kind of pink color. And that's a fun thing that people don't really know about. And this is also something that you learn through mistakes or you learn through trial and tribulation when you're a DIY perfumer, is that indole will darken a fragrance over time. And so if you make something and you sell it out on the market and then everyone's gonna be like, oh, it's this clear solution. And you just wait a couple while and then all of a sudden it's like, it'll start to get darker and darker over time.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring up Darren's comment here on, thank you for saying Macrut. So Macrut lime is what we would refer, is the actual name of what we know of as Kaffir lime. Kaffir is not the best word. It doesn't have the best origins. It comes from Arabic, the Arabic word kafir, meaning an infidel or a non-believer. And it is considered a slur in South Africa. So the movement to Macrut, which I actually think is a stronger, more robust name. I like Macrut lime. Is a good move. And that also kind of circles back to my anger that bergamot is always represented as Macrut lime online. Drives me nuts. Sticks 10.2 Schlonghammer, how can you be sure that the self-taught perfumers aren't creating harmful stuff for our skin? Is this regulated? Well, I think that James would be delighted to answer this question because I know how passionate he is about the care needed. So James, if you could just answer to that one.
Sure. So you don't know, and it's not regulated, because the wonderful thing, and like this is something that I talked about with Pia and Nick when I went to visit them in London, because the EU is very strict about safety rules, and they follow everything by IFRA. And I also know that Pia is part of IFRA, I believe she is, and I know that she's part of the British Society of Perfumers. So everybody there is very much a stickler for following the rules and regulations. In America, it's a wild, wild west. If you fuck up, you get sued. And that's literally it. Like there are no, I mean, you can go to the FDA website and you can look up, but like there are no rules, there are no regulations for how it works. It's like basically the government saying like, if you think you're smart enough to release a fragrance, then you are smart enough to know the consequences. And there are people that will make a fragrance that they release it here. And there are brands that they've already been called out by other people in the fragrance community where they say, yeah, you can't actually put this on your skin. Or there are some people who are fragrance makers and they will actually say on their website, they're like, we don't care about IFRA. You're like, okay. But then that also tells you like buyer beware.
Yeah. There is a reason why something like IFRA is in place. And I know that in the fragrance community, it has been so vilified and there's a lot of conspiracy theories behind it, but regulation, whether or not it may have some imperfections, is better than no regulation at all. So to have those who, make these decisions on what the maximum percentage is for use to prevent any possible adverse reactions on the wearer, it keeps that in place. And even with no regulations here in the US, there are obviously perfumers who want to be responsible and don't want to risk fucking somebody up who's wearing their product. I mean, not always. There's a lot, like you said, that, you know, they're like, we're not IFRA compliant. We want to have all of the freedom in the world. And let me tell you something, like from my experience working with materials early on, using certain materials, there was one that I had the most horrific experience with, and it was Masoya bark. And this is before Masoya bark became completely 100% banned from perfumery. It was when it was a very low restriction, still available to be purchased by people tooling around like myself who wanted to become a perfumer. I put too much Masoya bark into a blend, and my skin broke out in the darkest red hot rash all around my neck, all around the college, and it terrified me. I was like, this is I can't fuck around with this. These things can be dangerous if they're not handled with care. And it goes for certain materials that you would be surprised, you know, things that seem relatively, you would think, oh, that's harmless. You know, bergamot that doesn't have, bergaptine removal and its propensity for sensitization and skin sensitization, that kind of stuff is no joke either. And the list goes on. So when I see that somebody says that they're not IFRA compliant, I do not trust them.
And also there are people that they might mean well, but they maybe have just like copied and pasted what other people did on their website. So I know a perfumer where she claims that her fragrances are all natural. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's cool. No beef with that. But then she states one of her fragrance notes is verbena. And it's like, I really hope that is an accord and not the real thing, because you cannot use verbena on skin. Like that is, if we actually followed IFRA guidelines, like it is prohibited. Like it's not restricted, it's prohibited. Like you cannot use verbena on people's skin. Yeah. And I think that's also part of the problem when you have a lot of DIY perfumers in the United States. Like if they haven't really gotten through, if they haven't done the time to learn the fragrances and they haven't done their due diligence to understand the chemical properties of materials that they're working with, then yeah, like they're setting themselves up for failure. Or they might be doing the thing of like, they don't have business insurance. Like they just use their homeowner's insurance or something like that. And they haven't taken the time to actually cover themselves for liability, because then when they do get sued, and they will, they're screwed. Like they don't have the money to cover for themselves.
Yeah.
Or like shipping things through the mail. And it's like, okay, you just put that postal carrier at risk. You put the entire USPS at risk because nobody knows how much you just sent in the mail. And like you just sent flammable material. Like that's not really a smart thing to do, or ethical, or cool. So like sometimes it's really helpful to, learn how to do these things correctly, because that way it's safer for everybody, and also like helps you build yourself as a brand. So people aren't going to be like, oh yeah, I use that stuff, and now I have cancer or something. God only knows. God forbid. Touch wood.
Yeah. I mean, I was recently diagnosed with asthma, and while I didn't want to pinpoint the reason for it, because I spoke to my pulmonary specialist, and there is no way to really pinpoint, because it could have had to do with environmental as a child. But I, in the back of my mind, because I was just so reckless early on and having overexposure materials, wondered that whether, maybe not even necessarily if it caused the asthma, but if the asthma was already latent, and it really just kind of brought it to the surface, because I was around so many irritants in such a cavalier manner. And that's something to consider, like I still have to I have to be very careful. Like I still, like even when I'm, sampling indoors, like I have my windows open. It's like, thankfully I have like a mild winter here, but it's, people should, and this is more so for the people who are interested in dabbling with perfumery. It's not like, a kid's chemistry set. You're dealing with some volatile chemicals.
Yeah. I mean, so when I first started out learning how to use materials, I bought oak moss from some random shop in Seattle, and it was like oak moss absolute, and I didn't understand the cost of it, so it was like $5 or $10 for the bottle, and I didn't know anything about it, and so like I brought it home, and stupidly I put it on my skin as it was out of the bottle, and I had like crocodile leather texture on my skin for weeks, and I'm actually lucky like that's all I had, and I didn't develop an actual allergy to oak moss, but I mean, that was one of the things I learned early on. It's that it's super important to know where your materials come from and they're using quality materials. And then going over to Europe, and then your friends are like, well, yeah, because you can buy, if you don't know your supplier, like everything's going to be adulterated. And then
and you don't know what it's adulterated with.
Yeah.
What has it been adulterated with? And is that safe or is that dangerous? There's a lot of that going on out there. The perfume materials that are available out there, you want to know your source. You want to, I learned that too with like my first purchase of oak moss was from some sketchy website, and I broke out like in rashes with that too, because I was like, oh, this smells so nice, I'll just wear it on its own as a perfume. Rachel, go ahead.
Sorry, JJ, I just want to jump in, say thank you all so much. I have to run to do family things.
Rachel, it was
such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad that you could join us, Rachel. We'll talk soon. Thank you.
Hi, Rachel.
Dave, if you're still available to jump on for the remainder, Dave Callie's Groom Room, as a fourth panelist, just jump into the backstage and we'll have you come in. We have a question here from DD. Capital D, lowercase d, how do things like sillage and application work for water-based fragrances?
So good question. All right. The way to create a water-based fragrance is that the parfum concentrate and water aren't going to necessarily mix inherently. So you need a third material, a surfactant blend, to hold them together. So the surfactant blend will suspend the fragrance uniformly through the water. And so it's not actually miscible or soluble. What it is, it's suspended in the water. But then also because you're using water, you don't want anyone to get mold. So you have to use a paraben, a preservative to inhibit mold.
Oh my God.
Poison. I know. Sorry, I'm not green. But yeah, so you have to use a paraben to it looks like Callie's Groom Room needs a link to join.
That would help. Dave, I will send that to you in just a moment.
Yeah, so you have to use these materials together. But then, so once you have the fragrance, so that way it's going to be, nobody has to worry about getting mold. Like it's not ever going to go bad on you. And the fragrance will hold itself. And the water will evaporate just the way that alcohol does, not at the same evaporation rate, because obviously alcohol has a lower boiling point, and so it'll like lift off the skin first. But so you still have a really nice sillage on the skin. It doesn't. You don't suffer.
It does. Yeah, the sillage doesn't suffer at all, and I think that is the biggest surprise for somebody like water. I thought that was a given that you had to use alcohol in order to have any performance, but this is not necessarily the case at all. Like Tales for us, it's just there's a radiance. I like it. I like the radiance here. Philippe here asks James, what are some of the key fragrances in your life prior to creating your own?
I love vetiver. I absolutely adore and love vetiver. The Haitian vetiver and the double distilled vetiver I think are really nice because it removes the and I do love a Sri Lankan vetiver or Java, Brazilian. I think I had one from China too. And I know I have quite a few different vetivers. Like I'm obsessed with it. But so what's nice about the Haitian vetiver and the double distilled is that it removes a lot of the smoky property that you can get sometimes from like the distillation. And it has this very lovely, sharp green tone to it. It's wonderful. And like I feel like vetiver is one of those materials, it can go into any fragrance, like especially if you're still in that idea of like masculine or feminine, like it can play in either world. Right. And it can still deliver like amazing results. Right. I mean, like I went to Javoy Paris in London 2019 with a friend, and then they had the Iri Gris recreation by Jacques Fath perfumes. And so like that was amazing. And they were like, would you like a sample of it? And I'm like holding up my wrist like, yes, I would. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And they just doused my wrist in it. And like you have this amazing hit of like peach and the carnation and the clove. And then you hit the jasmine and you get that vetiver. And it's like, oh God, this is so good. And if I had $1,600 to buy a bottle, I would do it. And I would wear that all the time. Like it's amazing. Yeah, magical. I love vetiver. And I actually still also like patchouli too. Like I know it gets a bad rap for like dirty hippie, but if you really get your hands on a really good quality patchouli, it's like a scotch.
Well, Ryan and I are both really big fans of vetiver. So what are some of the vetivers that you've worn in the past? What was your introduction to vetiver?
So that's the part that's driving me crazy because I had a client when I lived in New York City, and I was still doing design work. I had a client in New York, and he was Swiss because it's always Europeans. And he had a vetiver fragrance, and it wasn't like gray vetiver. It wasn't. Maybe it was Carbon. I'm not sure, but it eludes me. But it was just like this beautiful, bright green vetiver, like no musk, no pepper, nothing else, just like this beautiful vetiver. And it was like, what is that? It's amazing. And it's so good. And I've been trying to find it for the longest time. It's like that. It's like my white whale. And I wish to God I asked him what it was because I'm like, this is so good. Right. It's like the same for me as like Dior Poison. Like when Dior Poison came out, I would sell my soul to smell that. It was so good. I love the smell of Dior Poison.
We've talked about Dior Poison on the stream before. That is my mother wore Dior Poison, and that's like I think one of the scents that I continually like chase after. I buy like variations of fragrances that like remind me a little bit of Dior Poison because like the original stuff is just so intoxicating. I think that's one that actually it was so ubiquitous that I think people don't give it the respect it deserves. But it was, I mean, that's the greatest of the shoulder pad fragrances of that era. As far as
for sure.
And like in the 90s, I wore Salvador Dali for men. Which had the lips for the lot and like the bulb for the base and
back then.
I love it. Like I love that fragrance, but like I think there was also vetiver was used really well in that fragrance because it was also mixed with like tangerine and basil and amber, and it was just like a completely different. And they described it as a fougere, which I'm like, I wouldn't describe it as a fougere.
No, and there's even like some heliotropine in it too. A little this sweet, cloudy heliotropy kind of thing going on in the middle too, contrasting with the darker elements. That one's pretty wild. Yeah. It's a great one. Yeah.
I never would have called that a fougere.
No. I mean,
no, I wouldn't either. I don't know why they describe it as somebody try to describe it as like a modern fougere, and I'm like, is it though? I don't think so.
No.
But yeah, like I do. Yeah, so I have my own bottle of like Fat Electrician because for like the vetiver and that, and then Perfumery, they did a vetiver which is absolutely amazing. Hermes, but then I'm trying to get away from like the vetiver wagon, so I'm like branching out other things. So, like I have 2 bottles from Perfumer H. When I was in Edinburgh, I went to Joram Studio and I grabbed Athenium and some other fragrances from them.
Ryan has turned me on to Joram Studio. Ryan turned me on to Arborist.
Really good.
Yeah. It's great stuff.
I really want to try. I mean, boozy fragrances can go either way, but they just Joram just released like whichever one, like Spirit Cask, I think it's called, or something like that.
Oh yeah, that wasn't out when I was there, but I did do Gorse, and then. And like there was also I think Pony Boy. I think there's also one of Yeoman's new ones too, and I don't think I got a chance to smell that one either.
What was I going to say? There was one. I'll have to look it up on my Fragrantica profile. On my little shelf of things that I wanted to sample, but there was one that's supposed to smell like this, like tropical garden from Joram Studios. Studio.
Garden?
Yeah. Hold on a second.
I
think it was just released last year. I'm going into my to try list right now, my little shelves that have my to tries. to try Paradisi, Paradisi,
Oh, yeah, I have that.
Paradisi.
Yeah, it's
And
fabulous.
intrigued by this guava and rhubarb and soil and mushrooms, and it just sounds like something that would pique my interest. I'd love to try that one. Oh, we have somebody backstage. We're gonna bring him in. This is Dave. Hey, Dave.
Howdy, Dave.
Oh, you're muted at the moment. And all you need to do is unmute, and then we'll be able to hear you. There we go.
Welcome
Can
to
you
the
hear
party.
me?
Yeah,
I can hear you. We can hear you perfect now.
How come
Yeah.
I can't hear you? What the heck?
Oh no.
Can't
Do you
be
need
having
to?
technical difficulties?
Oh, brother. It kind of reminds me of some of those technical difficulties that I would have where I wouldn't be able to hear any of my guests. So, James, one time I did one of the streams and I just had to kind of go with the flow. So, I actually had to have the stream open on my phone to hear everyone because I couldn't hear anything on my laptop. Why don't we have? I'm gonna remove Dave. Dave, try to add your. I'm gonna just have him sit backstage or maybe disconnect and then reconnect. But we love Dave. Yes, we do. All right. Okay. So, hey, what else is going on, James? Tell us a little bit about some of the things that have been intriguing you in your world. Tell us a little bit about what's fragrance-wise, besides Cork Absolute, or of course you could tell us a little bit about it.
Cork
I know I asked you.
Absolute
well,
sounds
okay. So when my husband and I were in Scotland last year for his birthday, we were on. I thought it was the Isle of Isla, but he was saying it was the Isle of Skye. Oh, I got that wrong. Okay, we were on the Isle of Skye. No, Isla. We were on Isla. Was it Isla? It was a fine God. And he could smell everything. He was like, "This smells so amazing. I want this as a fragrance." So that's kind of in like the back of my mind of like working on something. And so I thought the cork and the barley absolutes from Bioland would work really well because I have like this huge amount. I bought out the last of the Oakwood absolute that they had, and I've been using that for years in a few of my materials. But yeah, so I'm working. I could do that for a Scotch thing, but I think he actually was kind of more obsessed with like the flowers and the kind of the natural grasses in Scotland. So I'm going to be working on that kind of in the back of my, like that's a to do. I also have I created a sweetgrass accord and a cactus accord. And I'm going to mix those with copal and some other materials. And that was actually going to be kind of a fragrance that not to get political, but
no, you're going to alienate everyone. There goes all the follow. I'm going to lose followers. I'm going to lose viewers. Oh God!
Sorry,
horrible. Boo-hoo.
I knew this was gonna. Yeah, so it's going to be going to try and work with like a local tribe of a fragrance that can also help give back some money to the tribe and then create some visibility, but also a mixture of natural materials. Part of the natural Americas, and then also mixed with colonization materials. And so work on that as well. So that's also on the laundry list of things to work on.
Brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
That's so I feel like JJ over here has had the leg up because I feel like your fragrances sound so exciting, but I haven't tried a single one of them. So it's like JJ's got the goods over there with all the samples.
I do. I'm in love with opening, and you were my sister, and I love you. Tales of Us too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tales of Us reminds me of going to Florida and hiking and having like the smell of like, there was this place in it was just north of Tampa, and for some reason this smell takes me right back to hiking, and I can't recall for the life of me where it was, but it takes me back to that. Must have been, I think it was like April. It was in the 70s, 80s, and it smelled like this.
I mean, maybe it was Ybor City. So I went there years ago, and I saw a chicken running around. I think that also might have been an inspiration for the fragrance. I'm not sure. Possible.
I know chickens are often an inspiration for me.
So there's also when you were talking when you were talking about aquatics before I joined, and I was just like, oh God. So like one of the fragrance samples I also sent you was Not Get, And so like that's the green looking one sample that I sent you. And so like that is the ocean air and the ocean water mixed together.
And you already heard me.
Yeah, so I was just like, oh,
eviscerate that one from earlier.
yeah.
And of course, naturally, I'm going to reach for it right now and look for it. And right on the fly. What is the name of it again?
Not Get.
Not Get. I love that.
The one that's intriguing to me is Sound and Fog.
So that's my husband's cafe. He has a cafe. He started in like 5 years ago in West Seattle, where we live. And he is a coffee fanatic. He's really, and his palate is fantastic. Mine is garbage. Like I have a raccoon palate for coffee. Like I like my coffee from the 70s where it's like viscous and black and it coats your teeth and just like it's like tar. And I love that. And like he does not do that world at all. So like he gets coffee, he has relationships with people all over the place. So like he does like roasters from all over the world and like notes of like stone fruit and cocoa and cherries, and it's absolutely like people love this stuff. And so he's worked really hard on like curating a coffee experience for people that he's now like one of the top 10 cafes in Seattle. So like I'm super proud of him. But then I created a fragrance for him even though he didn't want me to, and I'm like, tough shit, I'm making a fragrance for you. So yeah, like that, the Sound and Fog fragrance is his, and like that's the only one that's not really necessarily music inspired. It's inspired by
not Get inspired by Björk.
Mm-hmm. Wow, you even said her name correctly. God damn. All right. Hey, Mr. Music DJ background.
Yes. I like it.
I was surprised because when I said aquatics, I was like, oh fuck.
No, you put some care into this because oh my God, I love that you're using, I don't know what it is that you're using, but it's very...
No K-lone.
There's no K-lone, but there is this cucumber aldehyde or something. I love it. I love it. And it's so, it is watery. It evokes a wateriness.
Liberal tears. White liberal tears.
Yeah.
That's the trick. Yeah.
Carefully. Yeah. Over years of suffering. Yeah.
I've collected them in a jar. So every time I was watching the news, I was just holding a jar up to my eyes and just like collecting the tears and putting in the fragrance.
Oh, look who arrived. I haven't seen him since Eugene was a guest.
Oh,
hi.
Hey. Oh my gosh. So super amazing person. Cannot say enough nice things about Galen. Like just so awesome. Out of nowhere, I was just like, hey, can I come and videotape you in your studio? And I'm like, okay, sure. And I love the video. And like I use it on my website. I will use it until the day I die. I don't care that I'm moving into a new space. Like I'm still going to use it because it's like I had so much fun doing that shoot with him, and it's probably one of my favorite things to do because like it, just absolutely fantastic person.
My friend John Biebel had a fantastic time with him as well.
Yeah,
he has a great future in the work that he does. He has a real talent.
And then because I think that he also did Ellen as well. Because I remember he did do Ellen. I did see that one. Galen is like Galen.
Okay, so as opposed to the Salazar Summer Breeze, where I was struggling to smell it because it was really penetrating and assaulting.
Hey JJ,
I keep wanting to smell.
We can hear you.
We can hear you perfect.
No. I just wanted to say that I'm glad that I'm not the only one struggling tonight. So that's good.
Yeah, we all are struggling in our own way. We all are.
The struggle is real. The struggle is real.
You just never know what battle somebody is fighting,
man.
Because everybody's fighting some sort of battle. And my battle is with that early first impression that it has been. I don't know. It's been overshadowed by much more intriguing things. I love actually Not Get, and I am really super particular about like aquatic kind of things, especially because of Calone. So yeah, it was to your benefit. It was a shrewd move on your part to not lean on Calone because it's just refreshing in general, and refreshing that it's not there. Yeah. I love it. I keep on smelling it. Well, that's a good sign.
And I would say probably, and I think it was Styx who brought it up about the indie perfumer. So I would say the only thing that probably separates me from like traditional institution learned perfumers is that I don't necessarily get all the pronunciations right. So sometimes I will say something and it doesn't necessarily like the same pronunciation everybody else. Cause like it took me forever to figure out how to say, I'm going to fuck this up right now, acetylated vetiver. And I probably didn't even get that right. But,
you said it, acetylated.
Yeah. It's like drives me crazy to say those things. But yes, like that's going to be the only exception. Like the DIY group, like you're going to hear us like say things, you'd be like, oh, DIY. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm always, that pedantic nerd that's like correcting people's pronunciations.
No,
like,
I mean, that's
this motherfucker, like
that's how you
whatever. Galbanum, labdanum, labdanum. I don't know. To me, galbanum rolls so much better than galbanum. I feel like pushing that second syllable out kind of makes the words awkward. But galbanum as a material, God, don't even get me started on how much I fucking love galbanum. I love greens and fragrance.
That's actually really like, it's surprising because like I haven't really found a lot of American audiences that connect really well with galbanum. Like they have a really hard time with it. It's almost the same with like heliochrysum. Like it's just a very hard thing for people to do.
Yeah. Unless they are somebody who gravitates, unless you're talking to people who were around during the heyday of green chypres of the 60s and 70s, where it was everywhere galbanum, or even earlier because of Vent Vert. Vent Vert had a boatload of galbanum in it. But these days, galbanum can be really challenging and immortelle, unless you're a fume head. You're a fume head.
Ooh, I love immortelle.
I love immortelle too.
Wonderful.
I think galbanum and bitter tinged notes in general are a challenge for the American palate.
I always argue that a good gateway, if people are even interested in trying an old fragrance, if they're kind of on the fence, are those wonderful galbanum and vanilla contrasts that were popular in the 80s through the early 90s. So I'm talking about like Mousse Cartier, Obsession, the original Obsession, the original Moschino, Crazy Krizia. I love that contrast with something very green and very sharp with this vanillic resinous dry down. I love that. It just drives me wild. I think it's sexy. But I think that would be maybe a good gateway. And then maybe one day that person will find themselves appreciating things like Nuit Tabacali or Synthetic Jungle or Vent Vert or something where it's just like piercing green for days, like real, like stemmy, vegetal, greener than green. I almost like call it like a yellow green. It's not even like, it's like this. I mean, maybe I'm just thinking of the actual materials kind of yellow green, but it just gives me that kind of yellow green sort of effect. James, is your new studio open for appointments?
Galen, why do you ask these questions? They're triggering. Okay, so getting space in Seattle is really difficult to get. Mostly because a lot of places are built super huge and you can't really, as a small business, it's really impossible for me to pay like $2,000 a month for rent for a space. And so it took me a long time to find this place where it's zoned for manufacturing and retail. And I have to give all thanks to the cannabis industry because a lot of places, they had to turn their places. They wanted to make money. And so a lot of building owners rezoned themselves for manufacturing and retail so that they could bring in all these cannabis companies. So I'm now taking over this space that was formerly occupied by a cannabis processing company. And these guys were fucking foul. And like, I had to wash the walls 3 times to like get all the stuff off. Like I'm talking like I had to hit everything once with simple green, which started out emerald green, came out gray. And then I had to go over with trisodium phosphate to like pull all the resins off the wall. And then after doing that, then I had to go back over with bleach to take off the remaining TSP residue. So like removing all those things. And then I don't know what the fuck they did in this front closet where it's like something exploded and they just left it there. And I'm like, okay. So I had to like clean all that stuff out. And now I just finally got all the windows and like everything primed so I can do the priming and the painting. And then there's going to be like all these other things to it. So like, it's going to take me a while to get to the studio back open for appointments. But then once I'm ready and open, I'm going to actually have like a proper room for just retail so that people can kind of hang out and they can smell everything they want to smell. my manufacturing space is right across the hallway, and then I have an office as well, so I can have everything under one roof, which is going to be great. But like right now, I'm just cleaning up after Canna Bros, and fucking hell, just like messiest, sloppy people on the face of the earth. I swear to God.
I would have been surprised if you told me they were very meticulous.
They put fucking nail holes everywhere, and I'm like,
Oh
what
my
did you guys do? Like,
God.
what did you guys have hanging up everywhere? Like, was it like black film everywhere? Like you were trying to hide like everything that you were doing, or are you like killing people? Like, and then there was like dog shit on the floor for some weird reason. Where I'm like,
No.
what is this? So yeah, like a big part of like I've been since I signed the lease, I'm just going in every day and just cleaning, and just like taking everything down. Where, yeah, definitely contact Buzz in my studio. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so Galen, to answer your question, maybe I was thinking March, but that was so stupid. So maybe March, April would be when you can come back up and hang out and we can smell stuff.
Hang out.
Wonderful.
So, go ahead.
Oh no! Oh, yeah. I was just going to say I'm just going to do a follow up on the three first impressions from earlier. It'll be the last follow up.
What are you sniffing, by the way?
Oh well, early on,
I jumped on late.
Yeah, I was sniffing Anatole Lebaton's Le Guilleret and Oscar for Men by Oscar de la Renta from the late 90s, and A Summer Breeze by Aromas de Salazar.
Ah, okay.
And the winner, I don't know why I even say it's a winner, but I mean, my favorite out of the three, Le Guilleret. However, which one is it? Opening, actually, I prefer the jasmine in Opening. I know I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass, but the beautiful jasmine in it, beautiful gardenia. So that's actually my favorite out of the four here that I sampled, although all of them are intriguing and I enjoy all of them. No rejections at all. The one that out of the first three impressions, obviously, that I had the toughest time with the Summer Breeze. But as Rachel said earlier, with Aromas de Salazar, just keep plugging away and refine your craft and take your time. It's difficult stuff to be an independent perfumer. But yeah, those are my three first impressions. And yeah, let's carry on.
I have a thought on Aromas de Salazar, if you don't mind.
Oh, of course.
It's a positive one.
Yeah, yeah.
I have nothing bad to say. So I did a Instagram live with Michael, excuse me, I don't know, maybe a month ago or so. And he did mention several times throughout that he is still learning, all the different processes and things of that nature. So I definitely do respect him for that. I do have a few creations by him. And the few that I had, I have them. They're pretty good, but then again, like I went off of my taste, and when I met him at Scent Explorer the first time I met him, I kind of had an idea what I was smelling or getting into. But yeah, I agree. I think that he recognizes that there's learning to do, work to be done, and I definitely respect them for that. I think oftentimes too, I'm pretty positive you and James touched on it, that you have an idea and you have all of these things kind of going on that you want to do, and it takes a lot of steps to actually accomplish it. It's not about throwing a bunch of shit in a vial and praying for the best and putting it out there for the public. There's so many different trials that you're going to go through and hate, that you thought that you would love and things like that. And I think oftentimes too, us as enthusiasts, we forget too how much money is wasted before things actually reach the market space.
Materials alone could be it's watching that go down the drain, especially natural materials. and feeling the heartbreak of like that will never be part of a perfume because it ended up being an abject failure.
Right. And another thing I just wanted to mention, just because you were speaking about, James was speaking highly of somebody who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and that's Pia Long. I freaking love Pia. She is just an incredible person. I've never met her, so I don't know her like that. But last year I was preparing for the review I wanted to do for Zoologist Chipmunk, and I messaged her, just simply asked her, hey, I'm doing this, XYZ. What can you tell me was your inspiration? I already know what Victor's idea was because he, shared that. But what was your thought? And my God, and this was our first conversation. You know what I mean? I just shot my shot. And the amount of information she gave me was fucking incredible. I was like, wow, this is far more than I could have ever asked for. And there was a lot of things she shared with me that I actually didn't feel comfortable speaking about because I felt like those were some kind of, I don't know, I didn't want to give it all away. I wanted some things left for the imagination, if you will. But yeah, Chipmunk is incredible. And I hope that she's able to bring more things out into the public because I think she does incredible work.
She's a great human being. Like I got to know her somewhat through my explorations in perfume making, and I had some great conversations with her, and she provided some insight with the transparency and a friendliness. She's a wonderful human being, and a talent, and a real talent. Yeah.
And back to your point about the expense that can go into.
Oh yeah, sorry, Ryan.
No, I think that's a kind of good way to circle back because I think this live stream started off with James talking about the expense of just shipping perfume and different things like that, and the burden that puts on an independent perfumer can be pretty high. And I'm very happy to see people kind of like take to task some of the bigger players in this space who are frankly not doing very well by their customers in terms of selling stuff that is frankly very cheap at very high prices. But I think one thing that is
amen to that.
But you have to for an independent perfumery, and there's a range of quality in independent perfumery. But I think you have to give some grace about cost there because of the amount of investment that one person has to take on and acquire materials, and materials are not cheap, as James has already given some amounts on.
But what's hard though is that so each of us, each one of us as a perfumer, we could go on this live stream and we could talk and we could share our stories and tell everybody. And so like you can create that, you can start to develop empathy for that perfumer because you're listening to their story about like how much these things cost. But like the marketplace doesn't give a shit. And so there are people, like when you release a fragrance, it's like nobody will think about those things or put that into context or perspective. It's more of that, does it smell good? And especially within the fragrance community, one thing that's always really kind of a space that can be walking a tightrope for a lot of perfumers is that depending on who talks about your fragrance and in what context they talk about your fragrance can make or break you. And there are people who have also been really well established, but then it takes one person to like write a review that goes anathema to what everybody else has said. And that will just like completely derail your brand. And it's a really hard thing to take back control of. And so it's a very it's a hard space to be in, so that you really have to make peace with the fact that like if you want to go into the world of perfume as an independent perfumer, you have to do it as knowing that you're not going to be able to make a living off of it. Like just you can't. You're just going to have to operate with a sense of that. At least in the U.S., you're going to have it has to be a side job. It can't be a full-time career.
You touched on something very important there. I think a lot of times when we read these reviews or we watch reviews here on the YouTube space, when you hear somebody speak negatively, not always, but sometimes it is the case when you hear somebody speak negatively about a particular fragrance. When it's not done in a professional way, it's a turnoff to me personally, and I feel like you really don't know as much as you think you know when you can destroy somebody's work. Like, you have no idea. Maybe you didn't read the backstory. Maybe you don't understand. Maybe, like you said, you don't care. But that all needs to be taken into consideration when we're talking about the development of a perfume. And yes, we know at the end of the day, it's all subjective, like with politics and music and just about art and fashion and everything else. But, you know, to hate on something is, I don't know. That's there's a respectful way to say that you don't, appreciate it, or it didn't work for you or something, and I think that's oftentimes lost in translation.
So
I don't think that we translate that, properly always.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, I mean, anecdotal words. I'm, man, this day. So when I was doing the Renegade Craft Fair thing when I first started out, because again, believing this mindset of like, you have to do these market events in order to get yourself out there, create a name, buzz, etc. So I did an event at Denver, Renegade Craft Fair in Denver. And that's where I met Dryland Wild, and like super awesome company. But I didn't do one sale the entire weekend I was there, because everybody who walked through there, it was a suburban crowd. And so I quickly learned that like a typical suburban crowd who was like fans of Denver Broncos are not going to connect with my brand. So like, they walked up to my table and they're like, do you have anything Denver Broncos? And I'm like, no. And they just walked on. And like, that was every person that walked by, like, do you have any Denver Broncos? Nope, walk on.
Wait, like a Denver Broncos perfume?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
okay. And literally, like, I mean, if I had I could have like just been like, yeah, Denver Broncos stickers. I should have run out Saturday night and bought a bunch of Denver Broncos stickers. And
you could just make money off of those.
And just made money off it and just ran the fuck out of town. But like, nobody did not get the time of day. But then went to San Francisco and I did a show there, and I was one of maybe the only people at Renegade that actually like did well, because there were people who were like, I haven't made a sale all day, and I'm like, I've been fucking busy nonstop. Then I did Renegade in Chicago. I didn't leave the table for 2 days. I was so exhausted. Like, I had never made so much money in my life, but the people who went to my table, they were just picking up smelling stuff. Like, they weren't there to listen to my story. They didn't want to ask me questions. They were just like, does this smell good? Good. Here you go. Here's some money. Bye. And that was it. But like, I made an insane amount of money there. Like, but the thing was like, they didn't care about my story at all. It was just like, does it smell good? Yes. Money. Here you go. Bye.
That's wild.
So I don't know. Maybe it's just the four of us. I would like to think there's more people out there, but yeah, I appreciate the backstories and learning about, especially when it coincides with what you're actually smelling. Because let's be real, sometimes it's just fancy marketing or sexualized marketing or something like that. But to understand the backstory, so there's this house that I've been sampling for the past couple of days, and no, not actually, most of this discovery kit is just not agreeing with my nostrils. But that doesn't mean that it's not good. It just means that for my taste, I don't really care for it. But when I go back and I read the story, right, I can see, like, visually, I'm like, okay, I get exactly where they were going with in this creation. Sometimes if a fragrance hits me in the right place, I can sometimes think of, I wonder if they were thinking this when they were creating this. I wonder if it reminded them of this particular scenery or maybe something like that.
I've met a good number of perfumers where if people come to my studio and they want to smell something, I'm always happy to share other people's samples, and it's fun because when people kind of hang out in my studio, it's like, I'm not trying to sell my fragrances like a car, like, because fragrance is subjective. Like, what you need to do is that you need to smell it on the paper first, and then if you like that, then try it on your skin where it's non-committal. And if you don't like it, you can wash it off. But like, put it on your skin, take it on a date, and see how it wears. And then at that point, then you can make an informed decision. But if you're going to blind buy, like, I don't like doing that because, one, there's no takesy backsies, so you're not going to get a return. But like, really try these things out. But then that's a good thing of like, when you come to my studio, it's like you're just hanging out and like you're having fun as an adult and you're just smelling things. And like you can stay there for as long as you want to and you just smell whatever you like. And then I'm happy to share other samples from other brands because they're the people that I've met that have other brands. They're also really fucking awesome people. And they're also people who I know that they've done the work. They know what they're talking about. And they're not doing those they don't do the weird bullshit claims. That you see with a lot of people where they just copy and paste where like somebody wrote like, oh, no parabens. Well, I'm no parabens either. And I'm non-toxic and I'm green and I'm sustainable and all these other things that like mean absolutely bupkis. And so it's kind of nice. So like when I go, so the Institute of Art and Olfaction, they're doing a perfume fair, a scent fair in LA in May. And I've been invited to participate. So I'm going to be like one of 22 perfumers. I don't know who else is going to be there yet, but I know that like who other perfumers are going to be there. I know I'm going to know some of them, and we're going to be like, oh my God, seeing each other again for like what seems like forever, and be able to give each other hugs. Which is like that's a really awesome thing to be able to say as a perfumer. Like you can see each other and be like, oh my God, it's so good to see you again. Like I've missed you, and like talk and like share each other's fragrances. Yeah. But you're not competition. You're just like your colleagues. And that's kind of that's a really wonderful place to be in. Even if like your fragrance profiles are completely different, your price points are different, like you're working different ways, but like you are all still have a mutual respect for each other.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That is really cool.
I should go because I need to eat dinner, and
Well, yeah, this is around the time that we usually kind of start to wrap things up. We'll probably stay on for a little while longer.
Oh, so we're staying on. I just got here. So
I know.
Totally. Give him his time. Like
we'll stay on for another 15 minutes.
I may have scared James off, but you
No.
You didn't at all. Like nobody scared me off. It's like it's literally like I've been looking at a computer screen since 5:30 this morning. So yeah, it's like
it's a shame that you won't be able to go backstage with us later. Remember I told you about the whole backstage?
I know, but like I don't have enough Coke to share. So it's sorry.
Well, in that case, enjoy your dinner, and this has been wonderful. Thank you, James.
Before you leave, I have a quick question. You live in Seattle, so are you a fan of the Seattle grunge era by chance?
No, I mean
you're more 4AD. You were. No. He has excellent taste, though.
I'm kidding.
Excellent taste in music.
So, like,
we bonded over 4AD bands a long time ago.
So, like, yeah, I when Nirvana came out, I was really confused by it because, I mean, I was still like 1992. Like when they first came out, and people were listening to them, and everybody started wearing Doc Martens, which was really confusing to me because in the pulp culture, like to wear Doc Martens was to be a skinhead. Or to be a sharp skin. And so like all these suburban kids are just buying random Docs and like they don't care what laces you're using. You're like, what the fuck are you doing? And then
I remember that too.
And that was a really weird culture clash for a lot of us. And then we're just like, what the fuck is grunge? And it was a very weird space to move into. And so I never really dug grunge. I did love like the Riot Girl scene out of Olympia. Like I was really into that, but yeah, like the grunge thing, I'm just like, okay. I mean, I still consume all kinds of new music. Like my copy, like I ordered the Golden Dregs pre-release, and I just got the album that arrived today. And U.S. Girls, their new release comes out in a couple of weeks or so. Like I'm still buying new music, but yeah, like the grunge scene just kind of went. It was like that same time of like the '90s bands like Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park and Blink-182 and all that other stuff. It just like miss me with that shit.
That was sort of like a weird delineation from grunge, though. That was when it just kind of like, as they say, jumped the shark, like in the mid to late 90s.
Yeah, it was like the MTV Real World meets like that kind of MTV covers Woodstock era, and like that whole scene. Woodstock 99.
Yeah,
like none of that. Just like none of that.
Disaster that was.
The guy who cuts my hair was at Woodstock 99.
Love it. He must have a lot of stories about that. Did he slip in some shit that was outside of like an outhouse, or
he pulled out pictures, man? Like it was some wild stuff, like burnout cars, like all kind. Like it was not.
Yeah.
He actually says you can see him in the Netflix documentary. At
really? Yeah. Oh, that's wild. Now, I was just gonna say, like, the thing that Kurt Cobain and I had in common is that we both had a real an appreciation for a lot of the same music, and then it kind of ends there. Like, he loved a beat happening and my Bloody Valentine and the Raincoats, but yeah,
The Vaselines.
the Vaselines.
I'm not a Nirvana fan, so I'm liking this.
All right, my friend James, thank you so much again for accepting my invitation. I hope that you can come back again sometime soon, just to shoot the we'll make it
judging by the comments, I don't know, you tell me, but like, yeah, anytime you want me back, I'll totally come back.
Oh, they can deal. They'll live. They'll fucking live.
And also samples to you, Ryan, so that way you can also smell stuff too. So it's not just like Joseph is just like saying things.
No, I'm kind of like compiling my order here. I'm trying to figure it out, but I lean very like, it sounds like JJ's done the floral run. I'll lean very heavily on like the tobacco-y, resinous, like incensey stuff that
I'm with you.
Yeah, so Gunnet, my tobacco whiskey one, that is that's all natural, but like that's mostly all base materials and some middle notes, but like that shit's gonna, like, if you don't want to shower, hey, have at it. Like that'll stay with you for a while.
Great.
Brilliant.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Happy Valentine's Day. Take care, James. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye. All right, fellas, it's just the three of us here. James is a real treat.
Yes.
He's been a friend of mine for a long time, and I wanted him to join for one of these little weekly shindigs, and I do hope he comes back again soon. And about politics, it's like, do we always need to get triggered, people? Like, if somebody's politics are different, some people are going to be adamant about their politics, and it's not going to be the same politics as yours. And I'm here. I am going. I'm gonna get on my soapbox because this is my domain. This is my home. This is my house.
Do it, baby.
And I invite you all in. And I might not even have exactly the same political views. You're not going to know that because I'm not going to get into it. But it's just about embracing what people choose to express and what they're passionate about. And you're not always going to agree with it. It's not always going to be an echo chamber. And there are going to be some people who have very different beliefs from your own. And for people who have very different beliefs, if you're very outspoken about your own, then it is just as much of a right for others to be. It kind of works both ways. And I think the more that we kind of get more comfortable with people who have different political viewpoints and hear them out, even if we at first were like, oh, I don't agree with that, this person, you start a dialogue. You got to open up dialogue.
Absolutely.
And that's what this is all about. So, hey, if this wasn't your favorite night, we'll have other people, but I am glad that I could have my good friend James join us tonight. He's a wonderful human being and a talent, a real talent. And he's a hoot too. He has a great sense of humor. So it was wonderful. All right. Well, Dave, I'm glad that you could come back with us as one of our semi-regular panelists here. What's been going on in your world? Tell us what's been going on lately.
Yeah, life's been kind of crazy. So I started a new job about 2 months ago. That's been my primary focus as of late. So it's a different industry than what I was doing before. So it's completely new to me. I took a risk, and I definitely don't regret it for sure. It's just I've got a lot of learning to do. Lots and lots of learning. So, it's nice to occasionally get this opportunity to get invited on these streams. I see Mr. Smelly Dan out there because this is my stress relief. Yeah. So this is this is beautiful stuff here. And other than that, life's crazy busy outside of that. 2 kids to family, spending some loads of quality time with them.
That is fundamental.
I'm enjoying my short hiatus from social media.
Yeah. It's important. It's important to give it a break. Even I, like lately, I've dialed it back a bit. Because social media is addictive. It is designed to be addictive.
Yes, I agree with you, but for me, it's I don't know how to explain it. Like, I know I don't really owe anybody anything, but I feel like I create a post, I make a post, people enjoy it, right? So my first thought is tomorrow I have to wake up at X and X, time in the morning so I can give myself time to do a photo shoot and prepare some kind of write-up and stuff like that. And eventually it got to the point where I'm like, what in the fuck am I doing to myself? I'm really waking up an hour extra early to consume coffee earlier just so I could take a picture of a bottle of perfume to post it.
You don't even want to know how I juggle what I do with my full-time job. It is a test of time management, and I don't even do that much. Like, I post one thing on Instagram a day and try to muster one video a week or every other week, and it's still like it's tough to do.
On the plus side, content that I've been doing behind the scenes is more of ideas, because there's a different direction that I want to take my my channel. So that side of it is going to be exciting. I'm pretty much ready to come back. Not that I have a tremendous, following, but it's I've as far as perfumery goes, man, I've been sampling my ass off. I have been getting into some really, really cool stuff. Just anything I see that sounds interesting, I'm sampling it. Anything that strikes me. And really, JJ, you were kind of the inspiration towards the end of 2022 there. Our conversation about oh, come on.
Well, we talked about Serge Lutens at one
point. But
what else?
There was a house though that
Another
we talked
house.
about that. Yeah.
Well, we talked about Sir
Frederick Mall.
Frederick Mall. Oh, that's next level.
Because I based off of our conversation, your recommendations, I purchased 8 samples, right?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And I said, holy shit, man, there's this whole other side to perfumery that I haven't been exposed to yet. So let me dive in, and obviously there are channels that out there on YouTube that you could discover that do focus on things that are not popular. And I really appreciate that, especially since I'm to the point where I'm turned off by mainstream designer fragrances. None of them really not many of them struck a chord with me last year. So I decided maybe dabbling into the more exclusives line of fragrances or exclusives from different brands. So I got my nose on a few Chanel lace exclusives, and I was floored, blown away. And it's
which ones were you floored by?
Yeah, tell us.
Well, I've always had a sick fascination, like disgusting sick fascination of sycamore. So I've always loved that.
Sycamore is really, really lovely.
Yeah.
So
it's so damn good. What's the Coromandel.
Coromandel's wonderful.
Fucking phenomenal. Like, that should have been called fucking Fabulous.
that is a more fucking fabulous than fucking fabulous by a country mile. Yeah.
I own plenty of Tom Ford fragrances, so like that said, I tried effing Fabulous.
And you were disappointed.
No, I wasn't just disappointed. I thought it was one of the worst things I've ever tried.
Oh my god, it is so.
It was so awful.
Do you remember, Ryan? We were talking about ennui. Like, that is like the embodiment of ennui in a fragrance. Like sheer boredom and like, ugh. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I tried a ton of stuff that day. I even got my my nose on Antaeus, which I don't understand the hate that gets because I think it's lovely.
Antaeus?
Who's giving Antaeus hate? I feel like that.
On Antaeus.
It seems to be polarizing within the community.
Yeah,
It seems
I
to be a
guess
little
so.
polarizing. But
I guess in the circles I run, it's always like put on a pedestal. So it's always like
I think it's amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, right?
I mean, I'm very used to the bass notes crowd. So like if you don't own like and regularly wear like vintage polo green, Azara Porom and Antaeus and Fahrenheit and Koros, you might as well just like get off the forum.
That's like the pantheon right there. That's like the
that's the vintage like masculine pantheon powerhouse. That's not really that's actually not really my scene, that particular era, but that is like if you're gonna own the few that everybody talks about, that's it.
Those are the ones. Yeah
And maybe a bottle of Fahrenheit, vintage Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit. What's the other one I'm thinking of? Well, there's Antaeus, Koros, maybe Jewel. I like newer Jewel though, but like those all of those. Yeah, Antaeus. Who doesn't like Antaeus? Maybe the ones who like more modern stuff. Maybe you think
I'm taking all things into consideration here, not just a specific crowd. But it seems to be polarizing. It's got its lovers and it's got its fair share of despisers too, But when I smelled that, I was like, what in the hell are people talking about? This stuff is beautiful. This is awesome. And to get sidetracked, but sticking with the same house, the way they utilize florals in the Lace exclusive line.
Especially Ylang Ylang and Jasmine. Yeah, Rose, really good stuff.
I think
Iris. Oh my God, the Iris is like that's some aura. You got some Oris butter. You got some Oris Absolute. You got some real Oris going on in there.
I really do believe Chanel is the best designer fragrance house on the market. Period.
I'm partial to Hermes. Personally.
I'm partial to Hermes, but Chanel is right up there. But Hermes, I mean, I'm the one who scoured the internet looking for, priced down Hermesences because, like, I was just so transfixed by the beauty of Jean-Claude Elena.
Every time I say that, I always forget about Hermes and how beautiful their creations are too. What a phenomenal line of fragrances. Those are the two houses I really want to dive deep into.
Oh yeah. Well, you're talking to the right people here. I mean, I love Hermes.
Me too. I even liked. I know it's more modern, so hate me. I don't care. I even really dig H24, both concentrations.
It's good. I mean, I didn't run out and get a bottle of it, but I smelled it and I'm like, it's good to know that this is sitting on the counter at Nordstrom and it's a diversion from the usual fare. So I hope this is a shift, a sign of a shift.
H24, I bought the day of release on Hermes website. Once it was available here to the States, I ran over and bought it. As soon as I saw that pop on Instagram that it's now available in the States, I went and bought it. I didn't even care.
Ryan, what were you going to say?
I thought it was perfect.
Oh, did I cut you off?
No, don't worry.
You cut me off. I'm just impressed that you went. I blind bought something Dave really. That's impressive to me. But I would say I thought that was one of the more elegant flagship like tentpole releases that have come from a designer house in a while. It reminded me of the better side of like late 90s.
Yes, agreed. Yep.
I can see that definitely. Styx wants to know one of my favorite handle names, 10.2 Schlonghammer. Have you tried Vert Fougere, Ryan? That one I was curious about.
I have not, and it felt like from what I saw, and like I don't. The reaction to that one just seemed a little mixed, and Florist is very hard to sample in the United States.
Yeah.
So it's not. It's like you kind of have to wait for things to pop up or not. A lot of the florist stuff, like, frankly, I've blind bought, just like waiting for it to hit discounters, and like if it drops below like $100, I'm pretty like there. Then I'm like tempted to blind buy it, but it's been very hard to sample it. There used to be some like UK themed shop where you could buy a huge like comprehensive sample set for florists in the States, but they went out of business. So
Florist Elite is easily one of my favorite woody aromatics of all time.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And that has like a lot of balsam fir absolute. I pick up the balsam fir absolute in it, which I'm just so familiar with for a few different reasons, besides having been acquainted with the actual perfume absolute. Balsam fir is like a big deal in New England because around Christmas time, I mean, you obviously have your balsam fir trees, but you also there's we burn the incense cones or the incense sticks of balsam fir, so it's like a very recognizable scent, and I love its appearance in Elite. That's a great one, and it's held very well over time.
I love
if you like that, and you haven't. Like I recommend this just because it's a $20 fragrance right now. I just confirmed the price right now. Like Aramis Devon would be a good. It's not like one, but in the same kind of like wheelhouse of I think you would get along with.
Yeah,
you should, Brian.
You should experience Aramis Devon, new, old, anywhere in between. I have both an old version and a new version.
I'm sorry, you're not going to like this either, but I don't search down vintage bottles of anything. I have not one vintage bottle in my collection.
Just get the $20 bottle. You love it. It's great.
What fragrance? I know it's Hermes. I got that.
Aramis Devon. Aramis.
Aramis.
Oh, Aramis.
Devon.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I did
somebody loved the Aramis line enough to keep that in very good shape.
Yeah, I did a comparison video and I did note differences, but not enough to say like, oh, it's a shell of its former self. It did not appear in the shell of its former self video.
No.
And by the way, I love Quorum Pour Homme, and I have a current batch.
Oh. Damn, he's coming at me now. He's coming at me.
No, absolutely not.
I have not.
I love you, JJ, but
I have not tried the current, so I have no horse in this race. I've only tried the vintage.
I bought that. So it was crazy because I found Quorum and I found One Man Show at Burlington, and it's funny because like I was driving by it and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna skip it because it's always a dud. Like there's never anything freaking good there, and I watch like these rack store videos and I'm like, I want to fly out to like where the freak you people live because I don't have not one damn good rack store near me that has anything worth it, you know?
Oh, yeah, tell me about it.
And I went in there on a whim. I said, you know what? I've heard enough things about Quorum. I think I'll really like it. And I saw a couple reviews of One Man Show, so I bought both of them. Love Quorum. Love it. It's awesome. One Man Show is god awful. Sorry.
Well, that is one where I did highlight that in my shelf for myself. It is nothing like it used to be. Nothing like it used to be. I think Quorum at least still has the bones of what it used to be, but One Man Show, oh my god, I don't even know how I don't even know if I should give away the newer bottle that I have. I have like a smaller 30 milliliter, and that's fine. And I quite enjoy the older version of it, but that one was really done dirty.
In the past 5 years, I've only skin scrubbed 2 fragrances off my arm rather, and that was one of them. One Man Show, I was absolutely repulsed by. I couldn't fucking do. Oh, by the way, Darren,
love it, Darren, love it.
I'm wearing Cupid's bow tonight.
And Darren's still with us. I've been wearing. I was wearing Dorian's Fougere. His new.
I am thrilled to get it. Darren has sent me a sample, and I can't wait to report back.
I think it's going to be to your taste, JJ. Knowing what you enjoy,
What was that fougere again?
It's Dorian's fougere.
Why didn't I? Why?
It just came out. It literally just came out.
I was gonna say, how did I overlook that when I was shopping? What did I do?
It literally just came out. It's a very. It's not what I expected in the best way. So I find it really fascinating, and I think you're gonna like it a lot, JJ.
Ooh, who's this sexy man? Ooh, he's putting up his dukes. You have a vintage one-man show from Manouche? Good on you. Oh wow. What other goodies did you get from Manouche? Tell us about it. Do you want a link so you can go backstage with us and you can tell us all about it?
Man, JJ, you just
handsome
out here.
devil.
But I don't often like draw like Shell of its former self lines in the sand. But the one I'm going to tell you that you can't buy the current of, and just don't do it. And I don't care who you read that says that it's okay, because it's not. Is Halston Z14 in its current formulation?
That was one that I did in my video. That is hollowed out.
That is not worth your time.
And also 112 too. That was pretty hurt. I've never really been a big fan of 112, but I just know that that was really hit hard, hit in the face, bruised.
Ryan,
vintage Z14 is great. Yep.
Question: Dorian's fougere.
Yeah.
Is it classic leaning?
Yes, I mean it feels very appropriately given its inspiration, like early 20th century to me. Like it is definitely not a fougere in the sense of like a 70s, 80s powerhouse fougere, or even like even what I think of as like a 50s, 60s fougere.
Sure.
It's very much, it felt very like early 20th century to me in a good way. Has a wonderful kind of like dark, mossy ambiance to it, with like the fougere kind of like poking out from that like dark veil of like mossy fog almost. It's nice. JJ's gonna love it because of the way it accents the green notes. It's definitely not a strong vanilla. It's not like a Karen Pornome kind of musky vanilla dominant experience. It very much leans towards like the green herbal side of things, which was nice for me because I've been sampling a number of fougères recently, and I was getting just very tired of overdosed vanilla and lavender.
Fougères.
Yeah,
I love
my fougères too. I love them when they're when they definitely have like that classical structure, and it really does seem like a fougere to me. That it really does kind of smell like, the forest floor with ferns and mosses and stuff. Sometimes like something's called a fougere, and I'm like, no, that's not giving me fougere vibes.
But on the flip side, there's things that aren't called fougères that do give fougere vibes.
Yeah, there's that where it's like I'm more forgiving of that if it's not referred to as a fougere, but it feels like one. Mm-hmm. It's when you got kind of like that like misrepresentation thing where it's like, yeah, this is a fougere,
like
it's gonna smell a lot more like, I don't know, chypre-ish or like a musk scent, like a woody musk, but it's,
yes, I know exactly what you're talking about there,
which is all fine and good. Just don't call yourself a fougere.
Bois de Portugal by Creed, I think is what is that? Is that an amber woody fragrance? It's a woody something.
Well, what was that? I dropped my mic. I did a mic drop.
A literal mic drop.
It fell from my desk, and I had to plug it back in. What were you saying?
Bois de Portugal by Creed, that smells like a fougere, but it's not classed as one.
Yeah, interesting.
It's not classed as one by Fragrantica, but I think most folks think of that as a pretty straightforward fougere.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely like the prototypical, like, kind of like 1980s version of a gentleman fougere.
With that soapy vibrance and all of the elements in it, with a clean lavender, and I loved that stuff ages ago. Like I was rocking that stuff way back when I first discovered Creed. My whole Creed infatuation came and went before even like Aventus showed up on the scene. Like, and then I like just kind of lost interest in like niche and fragrance for a while. And then when I started studying perfume, then I started getting back into it. But those were the days, man. Those were the days when like Katie Puckard videos were new. Like, I was watching her like when she started putting videos up in like 2009 and stuff. And
But the Creed lineup was also a little different back then.
It was way different.
Yeah. So it was a different house at that point.
It's a totally different house. Yeah.
Listen, I have a current formula. Well, I guess it's not current anymore. It's pre-buyout, but it's, I guess, the most recent current before the buyout. The whole Creed house is just confusing. But anyway, it smells freaking phenomenal. And it's
a Bois de Portugal. We're still talking about Bois?
It's a batch from 2019. Don't ask me the code. I don't know, nor do I care.
I don't think Ryan does either, but I don't know anything about codes.
All I could tell you is it smells beautiful. It's full. It's thick. It's rich, and it is ungodly powerful.
Have you tried Nikolai New York Intense?
No, and every single person when I talk about fougere says that I need to try that.
I don't think of New York Intense as a fougere. It's just everybody compares it to Bois de Portugal. So I was just curious if you liked it in the same family, if you tried it. If you already own Bois de Portugal, you don't need to run out and buy yourself a bottle of New York Intense.
No.
Each
Each will satisfy that yen. Like, you don't need both. I have New York Intense now. I decided to replace that desire for something like that with New York Intense because I sampled it. I'm like, this will do. This is cheaper too. I'll take this.
It is cheaper. I would say New York Intense is like if you took Bois de Portugal and like found a halfway point between that and Guerlain Heritage.
Yeah,
oh, man.
Yeah.
Now, Guerlain's Heritage is one of my favorite fragrances ever. Period.
Then you probably would like New York Intense.
You would like it.
But again, if
you have the Bois de Portugal,
and if you have Heritage, you definitely don't need New York Intense because it's just going to compete for the same wear time that the others.
You know what I should do? I should layer the two one day and see what that's like. Not that I'm a big fan of layering, but I just kind of wonder how the bitter greens would play with everything else that's going on in Heritage. I wonder how that would.
They're pretty dense, both of those fragrances together. I would be cautious, but try it. Let me know.
So, people, if you want me to keep on talking with my friends here, you got to buy me a coffee because I have a free subscription to StreamYard. So if I'm going to be on here for 3 hours, I'm going to run out of my hours for the month. So if you wouldn't mind, if any of you 27 people want to buy me a coffee, it's $5 for one coffee. If each of you bought me a coffee right now, I could get like a subscription like that. And then I can just do tons of live streams and not run out of hours. But we're reaching the third. We're almost at 3 hours here.
So StreamYard caps your hours per month?
Yeah,
when you have the free version.
If you have the free version. And I need to conserve my hours because we have a few more weeks left in the month. So yeah, if anybody's kind enough to send me a coffee, I'm begging you, please. I need the money.
You can't super chat them, so you might as well just buy.
Can't super chat.
Plus, JJ runs on caffeine, guys. So
I do. I had to have some coffee this afternoon to keep myself chipper at nearly 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Drop that coffee link. There it is, right there, right there. And you know what I was laughing about earlier? I was like holding my laughter because I didn't want to think I was laughing at James. I had this banner up. Do you just read that carefully? And your support helps grow his channel. That was meant to be this channel, but I find it amusing that it came out as your support helps grow his channel. Like, I'm referring to myself in the third person, people.
You are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how important it is. So buy me a coffee if you don't mind. But guys, let's take this back stage, because backstage doesn't count. We can talk for a little bit backstage. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Next week, got to bring up my calendar here, but I know that we have a really great guest next week. Let me bring up the calendar, because I haven't memorized this schedule. YouTube. So next week, we have Kitschy K.
Oh, Kitschy K.
And Scentland, the land of scent.
Oh, gee. Okay.
Yes.
There we go.
And then the week after that, we have Jane Daily Beauty, and Marciel's Blends. Marciel was on earlier. March 7th, Scented Moments. March 14th, Gabe Oppenheim. March 21st, For the Scent of It, another independent perfumer in the Independent Perfumer series.
Wow.
We have other people geared up.
All-star guests coming.
And there's more. I chatted a little bit more with
tonight too.
Christophe Ladamiel. We may have him on the 28th, but he has to confirm with me. So stay tuned, folks. We got a lot of great folks. Also, Dahlia, Perfume Dahlia.
Dahlia.
You may know her from Instagram and her collaborations with Sebastian Jara, the perfume guy. We're going to try to have her in sometime in April. So, all right, everyone. Have a good night. Take care. Be well. Stay safe. Bye-bye now.